Berlin Finance Committee meeting. Open session public meetings are subject to being recorded. Your image and voice will be recorded. All right, do the first order of business of approving the minutes.
I made the change.
Yes.
So, well, I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Yes, I'll second
Circulated
that.
and amended.
All right, any other discussion on it? Okay, roll call. Scott, aye.
Mary, aye. Julie, aye.
Shane, aye.
Cliff, aye.
All right, passes 5-0. Okay. Who do we have? I saw Eloise is in her office right now.
Do you want to do the reserve fund transfer first? And
Oh,
get
we
that out
have
of the
one
way?
of those. Yes, do that.
June, I'll go get her while you do that.
Okay. Thanks, Peg.
Currently, we are requesting $204.76 for workers' comp expense. I think this was the amount that was billed after they did their audit.
Payroll audit, yeah.
That happens. That's what I'm doing with my salon.
And we had literally almost enough in the workers' comp budget to pay for it, except for 200 and change. So I will be adding
That's not bad.
3,500, obviously, to the workers' comp budget for FY25 to account for this. Although we have lost some people since then, but I want to make sure I add at least that amount to cover us.
Okay, so motion to transfer $204.76 from reserve fund to workers' comp expense, account number 912.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Third it.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
All right, roll call. Scott, aye.
Mary, aye. Julie, aye.
Shane, aye.
Cliff, aye.
All right, passes 5-0.
And while we're waiting, if you don't have any other
Okay.
business. No, she's coming right now, so I'll wait.
It does take a lot to come down the corridor.
It is a walk, it's like a runway.
It depends on if you stopped in between.
Thanks, Shane.
I wasn't paying attention, sorry.
That's okay.
We'll get your attention.
Have to ring a bell to get my
Is this
attention.
electrocuted? I'm touching it.
No, but we have bright lights on the elevator. But you get the comfy chair.
Yeah. I hear they use nitrogen gas now instead of...
Oh, dear.
So it's a normal night.
Yes.
Eloise, you don't miss a beat.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so let me pull up the town clerk budgets. My computer is moving so slow. There we go. Okay, Eloise, take it away.
I have 4 elections this year, so I put my salary up by $2,000. Part-time wage, and part of that is because we have to do so much early voting. I don't get any extra. I'm supposed, James, when he does it, I will be able to submit for a reimbursement, but they haven't told us, are we 5 cents on the dollar or half, or I have no idea.
What's the reimbursement for? Just to help me understand.
Because it's an unfunded mandate,
Okay.
and clerks will challenge everything.
Okay.
So the state will reimburse for a portion of the costs associated with the elections.
Oh, okay.
For hours put in for,
To give you an example, I think it was the mid-'60s, the elections always started at 10.
Yep.
And then the state said, no, throughout the state, all elections will start at 7. So to this day, they have to send us a reimbursement for those few hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Some years they're better than others. So I will keep track of anything to do with any of the 3 state elections. The 4th election is the town election.
Okay.
Postage, whenever anybody goes to the RMV, I am notified. I have to pull it off my computer, and I have to send you an acknowledgement that you, as a voter, your voting record has been touched. That has gotten, we'd always done it, particularly if you change from one party to another, but now we just have to send it out. And I swear sometimes they send it out to us, we send it out, and then they like reset the computer the next week, and I'm like, hey, wait, I already did these names, but
Oh,
it is what it is. So if you get a duplicate mailing from me within a week or two of getting another one from me, that's what happened.
So Eloise, on that notice you have to send out, is that for people that are voting for the first time in Berlin?
Among other things.
I mean, the motor vehicles one in particular, I was curious about if that's...
Among other things, I just had last week, a couple sent me in a document that they had been to the registry. You're now automatically registered.
Yeah.
You're automatically registered as a U. So that's why I sometimes have to send it out, because somebody looks and says, oh, they really want it to be something else. And
Oh, as an
they,
unenrolled. You're automatically registered as an unenrolled unless you
Yes.
do something about it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
but this couple asked to be taken off the voting rolls. They sent me an email with their written signature. That's what I do. But it means I have to send them yet another letter.
Confirming that you're off the rolls.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not so much fun anymore.
Well, there's a lot of extra work for election clerks. When I talk to people that really want to open up voting access, I remind them of this, that things like early voting, it really increases the clerk's time.
Mm-hmm.
And then this automatic DMV registration, unless you disclaim it right there, it's going to happen. And now I see your process, which I wasn't aware of, that you have to do the acknowledgement.
Whenever a voter is touched.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's first time or not. Yep.
No,
Okay.
that just adds a different layer, because if it's the first time voting and it's a federal election, they have to provide ID.
Right.
We've always had the ability to challenge any voter. We just have to be consistent. I can't say, that guy's wearing a hat, I'm challenging him. That's not allowed. But I can say we've challenged every 15th voter.
So to complete the registration, do you have to see the ID, or does that happen on election day for that first time voter?
Sometimes I have sent them notice if I have time. If not, they
Okay.
can't get a ballot until I see it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, these aren't on the budget. I just
That's
have
fine.
that curiosity about
It's
these
part of my
things.
job.
Yeah.
This is I have to do other things other than just work in the town offices. Like tomorrow, James and I are attending clerk school, and we have to sign in at 8:30. Classes start at 9 and they go to 5. And it's all about early elections and how to do this and that and these and those. And in addition, the machines, I have to give notice to the state. I believe it's 120 days. So I'm waiting to find out from Brenda from LHS as to when the machine would be available, so I can plan accordingly. Until I know it's a signed deal and it's in my office or in the town hall, I can't take a chance. And I think the rest are just fairly standard increases. Do you have any questions for me?
For these here, is this just like the same webinar? On the
It's
dates?
it's a reoccurring webinar.
Reoccurring
It's
one?
every 10 a.m. on Wednesday on cybersecurity.
Okay.
And it's run through the Secretary of State's office.
Okay.
They also currently, for the month of February, except for tomorrow. They have courses on Thursdays from 10 to noon, and that's about the kitted ballots, and they want consistency throughout the state.
Yep, I can understand that, yeah.
Do you have any questions on that part? Okay, I also control the elections budget. Part-time wages, I put in as though I didn't have the machine because I submitted the budget before the machine was done. And so if in fact we get the machine and I get accepted by the state, because I have to ask their permission to go from a paper ballot to a machine, then I would probably turn back money. But historically, in the 2020 election, I was here from 4 a.m. the day of the election to 4 a.m. the next day. And I can't do that anymore because the other people were often too.
Wow.
Well, once you start an election, you can't say, okay, hold it off, put it off till tomorrow. You stay until it's finished.
Yeah, the manual tally is really tedious, and that's the part that, with the scanner, with the machine scanning, that would really, those hours would be cut
Yeah,
down.
cut down.
On the other
Yeah.
hand, I have a lot of people who volunteer for that, and I am grateful.
It's my ballot partner right there.
So other than that, I don't know what's going to happen.
The election warden doesn't get any compensation, right? That's
He chooses not to get.
chooses not to. Okay.
Actually, right this moment, half of my election people choose not to be paid. That's their one big civic duty, and a lot of the tellers at night, the count that actually count the ballots, that's their civic duty. So if you have any further questions?
The election thing looks good, the election budget.
Yeah.
Oh, also out of the town clerk's budget comes the dog licensing program.
Yep.
And then I have registration, and that's because 10 days before every town election and town meeting, if they're not called on the same warrant, you go with the first, in our case, the town meeting. And then before every state primary or state election, we have to hold open voter registration, and it's from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m.
So that's strictly for voter registration, that one, right here.
Voters are very carefully tracked. If you're not a voter, you could fall off the planet, and that's my opinion. And once again, if anybody comes in to register, you have to send them a document. So do you have any other questions?
I'm good with it. So, you've got the dog tags. Who does the vehicle stuff? Is that in your area too? No, never mind. No, I know where it is, never mind. Don't let me confuse things.
Come on.
Don't
I need
confuse
one or
anything.
two questions.
You need some challenge? Well,
I have
don't
a
know.
challenge question for
Sure.
you.
All right.
How come they're not in one budget?
You'd have to ask June. That's the way it
They've
came
always
to me.
been that way.
That is my favorite answer in the whole wide world.
They're actually still separated on the state forms.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Because I've always seen town clerk having just a budget.
It's probably getting on time that if we could do that, we probably should think about it.
That would be radical.
I try to go to the extreme. That's me. I didn't know if it was because, especially in this case, with the state giving money, if tracking it separately made it easier. I wasn't sure to match up what was coming from the state versus what
I
we
don't
allocate.
believe the state looks at these numbers because I have to provide the numbers for all the elections to the Office of Mandates.
No, I more meant so you could track your spending and compare it to what you're getting reimbursed from the state, because you break it out by elections and registration from the town clerk budget.
So Kristen,
I probably do.
you might be careful about what you asked for there, because the town clerk budget is going to get lumpy because elections don't happen every year.
True.
Right, so then you're going to see, when you're doing a scan down the budget, you're going to
Yep.
see town clerk, oh, look, it went up, 40% this year, why did it go, whatever. I'm making
Whereas
up a
if you
number.
have it as elections, then you specifically
You-
see where it's going up.
It's very easy to see year to year why it's high, why it's low, because everybody,
There's not much extra
The
in there.
process is you got a 4-year election, that's this year, and then next year you have 1, and then the following year you have 3, and then the last year you have 2.
That's not hard to keep track of at all.
Good. I'll give you
I was
the, you
gonna
see
say
the budgets.
No, it makes sense. I was just trying to ask you a question because you wanted
Thank you.
one.
Oh.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
But it is interesting why registration and elections aren't together.
Because
'Cause they
in
are
a lot,
connected.
in a lot of the larger towns, they're separate, in cities, they are separate offices.
I'm just,
Said they still
it's just
they
a
are.
curious thing, yeah.
Ellie, which budget does it come out of when you have to have people call for the census?
That,
town clerk?
the census is all about tracking
Is it the elections? Is that where? it
registered
usually-
voters. Like I said, if you're not a registered voter, you could fall off the planet. The schools like to know any kids that are falling off the planet, but,
We don't like to let that happen.
so the census notice just goes out to people who have registered to vote in the town
no,
households?
the
Or does it go to
census
everybody?
has to go out to every household,
Every year,
every year.
yeah, okay.
And I can't use a return receipt requested. I can't ask the, right now we have Clinton Offset, and I am grateful that they do it. I cannot have them forward the mail,
Right,
because that's
right.
going out of town.
Yeah,
The census is restricted to Berlin.
yeah.
So you did point out one thing, though, that you and I had talked about too, but we may not have the answer in time for the budget, which is that $3,000 additional for the election part-time wages. And we'll see what Brenda's timetable is. We have ordered the machine. It does take a while on their end, and then of course, as you mentioned, you have to register it with the state and get their approval to use
Can I
it. But
point something else out? I haven't worked in tech for years. You're getting a new piece of equipment.
Mhm.
You may be cutting your hours, but as you're getting up to speed, you may actually still need those hours to basically change over your process.
For more hours on a
So
temporary.
this would be the year to track, if you can,
Yep.
what those hours are going to, whether it's still the regular election or getting yourself.
With the machine, you save at the end of the election.
Yeah.
But prior to that, once you have a machine, you get your ballots, you have to print 50 ballots. They have to be sent to the state so that the state knows your machine is in working order. I mean, it
Yeah.
loads the time on the front end.
Yeah. So I'm saying we're not going to completely cut that additional hours with having the machine. It's going to be better, but
I hope so.
It'll be a better process, but not necessarily more economic.
Yeah. One thing is that a big cost of that is, if I'm not mistaken, was the police detail. And because there will be a much shorter period of time, that expense will go down significantly. So.
that would show up on the police budget, right? Or does that show up on
Correct.
the?
Elections.
I
Where
don't
the-
pay for the police.
Oh,
I
you don't pay for the police?
No.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood when Tim was talking about it.
So it's not in the elections budget, it's in the police
Got
budget.
it. Okay.
Correct.
So then, yes, I'm more in agreement with Julie then, if that's the case. I'll unhighlight it. How's that? But yeah, no, I mean, and Eloise and I met and everything looks reasonable to me, so I did fill those budget numbers in as my recommendation.
Good.
All right.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
I feel appropriately enlightened. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're having fun, you're welcome to stay, because we might have some good
I
questions
work
later.
Wednesday night.
You can just send everybody down here.
Thank you, Eloise.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Eloise.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Of course, I just handed her my vote by mail card, feeling guilty about the extra work.
All right. Next, we have Council on Aging. Let me just pull in
Hello,
social
FinCom.
services.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Crystal.
Hello. Hello.
Pull your budget.
I know, right? I'm 541.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you're welcome.
still don't have everybody's numbers memorized.
fine.
That is something that doesn't stick in my head, unfortunately.
Oh, well, you can be forgiven, I think.
Are you sure? I'm not sure. I can
Yeah,
beat
yeah,
myself up all
yeah,
day
sure,
for
why
it.
not? No.
Take it away.
All right. So for the personnel services, the full-time wages have had a jump because I am still partially funded through ARPA, and yeah, you guys have to pay for me. So that's that. So the 36,150 is basically 20 and a half hours that ARPA has been paying for. That would be going up under the full wages.
And that was a 3-year ARPA commitment initially to see how things, we could build with social services, and, I believe there's a real need there that needs to be met.
Absolutely.
What's the acronym, ARPA?
It's like American
Recovery
Prevention Act or something
Plan
like
Act.
that?
I
Something
don't
like
know
that.
what the P is. It's the COVID money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so social services was one of the ways
Rescue.
that you could use the money
And
for.
rescue and-
Okay.
And then under part-time wages, it's just the COLA increase of the 2% that we were notified of. So hence the $521 increase there.
Okay.
As of right now, we are budgeted for approximately 27 hours a week of van service, and that is for 2 drivers. Right now, I have 1 driver out on workers' comp. I have 1 now part-time van driver, and I had 1 driver who gave their notice and last day was effective yesterday, but we're still going to have the same amount of coverage that we had previously. So that's where we're at there. And then, Kristen, if you can please scroll down for expenses. So this is going to get a little complicated because just to give you guys a heads up, the other expenses line is the social services budget. That's $2,500, and that is level funding. And so everything else is for Council on Aging. So contracted services, we have increased up to $7,100 because the cost of Tai Chi and yoga have increased for the COA. And then the other services, that is now at $2,841. That was kind of the leftover money that I had after kind of doing the math out for the other services that we're offering. $4,000 in gas. I'm just budgeting because gas prices keep going up and down. The van at this point gets about 17 miles per gallon on average, and I'm budgeting it for $3.50 a gallon, just because, again, not knowing how that's going to shake out. The travel expenses for $400 is we have a Meals on Wheels driver who gets reimbursed for her mileage. So that's for that. And we have down to $500 between MCOA and with Meals on Wheels through MOC. We have to make donations to them as well. Anything at this point that wouldn't be covered under that would come out of the other services for the $2,841. So that brings me to a level funded budget for COA and social services. And at this point, the reason why postage was taken out was because I have 2 supplemental requests in. One is for the Powder House to no longer be solely under the COA and to have it become a town paper. The reason why we have that going is that we have a lot of departments, boards, committees who want to contribute to the Powder House as it is. And when we had our UMass study done at the end of last year, when they did the review, we found out that one of the big concerns Berliners had was just lack of clear communication as to what's going on in the town between all boards, committees, departments. So
What UMass study was that?
the UMass Boston won that community needs assessment.
You would have gotten something in the mail.
Do you remember that?
Card to send you to a website to fill
Okay.
out.
So that helped us to see that, communication still needing to be improved, which, is a challenge for every department and for every town, so.
So I'm sorry, where do you find, so that's where the...
It's under the COA part of this,
Okay.
of the town website, and then it's a light 115 pages, Julie, so, if you need some light
Okay.
reading there, you can go right through it.
150.
Yeah. So the part of the reason why too is that the powder house costs are just they're just eating up more and more of the COA budget. We honestly cannot afford it, and I've let the council know when I met with them on yesterday. It was just too much. What we have been doing we've been doing bi-monthly hard copies that have been mailed out to all the senior households, but as the population of seniors continues to grow and postage costs continue to be a giant question mark every 6 months, it's eating up too much of the budget.
And the copies that get thrown away at the post office.
So
Yeah.
So how many are printed when you...
So when we are doing a printing, we are doing 800 because 750 are getting mailed out, and then we're having 50 extras that people can grab if they're not, choosing to get it by hard copy. The council has really been wanting to continue to have that going, but I basically explained to them yesterday that it's not feasible for the budget that we have.
My recommendation is either way, regardless if this stays, with the COA or it becomes a town paper, that we send out either a card or some sort of notification in the newsletter itself that says we're going electronic. If you want a hard copy, you need to call the office or send an email to blah, blah, blah email address. And I think that we're going to find the people who actually want to get it by hard copy, you're probably going to cut that number at least in half, if not more. And I think you'll generate some substantial savings there. I also think we could maybe up the ones we hang on to 100, and you could put some here, you could put some at the library.
Yeah,
we could do it at a few different places.
The council and I, we were talking too about, like, for example, for all like the senior housings, like the Northbrook, Highland Ridge, and like Meadowbrook and things like that, just not even mailing them, just doing a bulk delivery to the common rooms, just so as people are going to grab their stuff, save some postage that way. But it's just getting to the point where, unfortunately, the 800 copies that we've been ordering, we got a rough copy of the latest census, and that's now all the new households that have come into town that are seniors. So now it's like we've got to up the thing again. So I was just explaining to the council, it's just not feasible for us to keep doing that with it being so much of the budget. So that is supplemental request number 1, and then supplemental request number 2 is going to be that I'm requesting aid for a full-time worker to help me out. As of right now, I am the only department with no paid assisting staff, and I'm getting just stretched too thin. There's so much I want to do for the town, but I just do not have the time or the ability to stretch myself anymore. Right now I'm doing council on aging, I do social services, I'm also the ADA coordinator for the town, so when we get ADA funding in, I've got to make sure that gets spent, and I've also now taken on SHINE responsibilities. SHINE stands for serving the health insurance needs of everyone. So basically during open enrollment period especially, we have a lot of people coming in asking questions about Medicare. They're trying to figure out what plan works out well for them. I book appointments with people. They're easily, 1 to 2 hours, pretty easy. Again, some people may need repeated visits. And then in terms of like what I'm doing with social services that, again, aligns with Council on Aging is I do a lot of work with also public benefits. So this could include Mass Health, this could include food stamps, fuel assistance, helping people fill out housing or CHAMP applications. It kind of runs the gamut. I've had some families that have called me wanting to request one-on-one sessions if they're trying to care for a caregiver. How do they manage that? Do we have any support in place as well for various resources in the community? I'm trying to do more work with some other regional organizations as well. So I have been participating with the Joint Coalition of Health as well as the Central Mass Suicide Prevention Coalition, because these are issues that are affecting everybody and they're not going away. So what I would like to do is, if I could get an assistant, I would like to do a lot more proactive work. I want to do more outreach. I would like to try to have office hours, at the various senior housing, and as well as be able to offer like some support groups or some other things that, again, we could have more opportunities for residents to come together. But like I said, I'm only 40 hours and I'm only a human, so it's just the stuff I would love to do. At this point, I just can't.
When you say 40%, is that 40% of the town population?
Correct.
What's it at right now?
34.
34?
It's a pretty significant number.
And it's highest. I mean, we did I was doing research back about 2 years ago, and I can say that like a more stereotypical profile in terms of demographics is that most towns are usually between 25 and maybe up to 30% senior. So Berlin has well eclipsed that, and
We're above it, yeah.
and I mean, you guys are going to continue to eclipse it, forecasted at least, for at least another 10 to 20 years, easy.
And what's the age that you consider the start of?
So the state considers seniors 60 and older.
60?
Yes.
Okay.
However, I mean, if somebody's at this point, like even before I did the social services part of it, I never turned anybody away. And then thankfully with social services now, I am now responsible for the mental health needs of everybody in the town. So
Oh, wow.
not that I wasn't before, but like I said, it is what it is. I really would love to do more also too, especially if I had an assistant focusing more on the youth of town. I haven't been able to get much ground with that, and it is something that I desperately think we need to really try to pivot and do more work on. Kristen is aware too, like the town has received opiate settlement funding, and then myself and Chief Shartner and Kristen, like we're trying to also, work together to try to figure out how to best spend that money for prevention and education. And to be honest with you, I haven't even had time to really dive into it.
Did you mention the digital literacy?
Oh. So the COA did get a $35,000 grant from the state. We have started digital literacy classes for our seniors. It has been a very interesting road for the 3 weeks that we have done this so far. So what we are doing is we are going to be purchasing tablets. We have some mobile hotspots, and we are teaching classes of various topics for our seniors. A lot of seniors are very fearful of technology, and through more and more meetings I'm sitting through, a lot of the public benefits, including Social Security and Mass Health, they're going to be completely digital within the next 5 to 10 years. And if you don't know how to operate it, you're screwed, because paper is no longer going to be an option. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people more aware of the fact that technology is here. We completely understand and validate fears and concerns that people may have about making sure that they're safe and secure online, but the new norm is really that everything is shifting online because it's more efficient, it's more cost effective, and there's a less risk of, paperwork being misplaced or anything like that.
That's a really important initiative.
Yep.
That's a really, really important initiative.
Thankfully, the state, what they were trying to do, and again, we're going to have to see what happens because Governor Healy just cut $1 billion out of the state budget for social and human services. So what they were originally thinking of with the digital literacy grant was that this was a pilot program, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to extend this out and then have the opportunity for all cities and towns to apply and get some, funding, kind of like what a formula grant or other state funding would be out there. So this is like the beta test of the state. So Berlin was one of 23 towns that was picked.
Oh, great.
So, no pressure.
And if I can add, one of the things that Victoria and I talked about is, being, as you mentioned, proactive versus reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is right now there is a great need out there. It's a reactive situation. Folks are reaching out to Victoria when they have a need, and it's often when it's crisis.
It's too late.
And it's late. And then it's a far more difficult situation to deal with than if we were able to do more outreach to people. And so it's really a decision of, unfortunately, it's one of the highest needs. It's one of the first things, like you mentioned, they get cut when the state has budget cuts. But as we all saw through COVID, particularly with mental health needs, it's a huge priority. And I think people are finally coming around to be a bit more open to discussing it and coming forward. We talked about numbers too of, what the what Victoria in her departments are serving in terms of individuals and families, and you're probably about around 100 a year. So I
Yeah.
think you'd be able to do more if you had some assistance. So,
Yeah, because
Help
I
100 families?
between
Wow.
between 75 and 100, because the thing is that it's interesting because COA and social services does have some overlap, especially with the seniors, but I do have a lot of things that I would say are more social services. Like I have residents that I will do like just check-in phone calls with when they are in distress. I've had phone calls from the police asking for assistance, even just like talking with residents over the phone while they're at a call, just to make sure that that can I de-escalate a situation, like so we can prevent a crisis.
Yep.
I mean it really can run the gamut. I mean, and I like encourage people to like. For example, like we've had a couple residents where they're just like in such distress, and I'll tell them like if you need to call and leave a voicemail at 2 a.m, tell me first that like you're fine, and then if you just need to wail and go, and I'll call you back the next day. I have some residents that I will do house calls with. I don't force that on anybody because I feel like that is a choice, but I do offer it whenever anybody may want it. And then, like I said, I always try to let residents know, too, if you guys continue to need something or if your needs change, just let me know. If I don't know something, I flat out tell people I don't know it, and then I get back to them. I would love to say that we do have enough, like, state and local services to serve everybody. We don't. And the budget just got slashed again. I got an email from Elder Services out of Leominster who services Berlin, and they basically said, expect to see, continued reduced services because their budget is also dependent on the state. So this is just the reality of what we're dealing with.
And we sometimes will get, every month or so we'll get somebody in our office who has exhausted all of their resources on the town side, but there are potentially outside resources that they can be matched up with that Victoria is aware of from other nonprofits or other agencies. If a lot of times we get into situations of, neighbor disputes or civil disputes, and we can't necessarily assist, but Victoria can do referrals to like community legal aid, to different state entities, and so we do referrals out of our office to Victoria as well, which has been really helpful because I hate having a resident come in distress and basically being like, the town can do nothing for you. And unfortunately, sometimes that is the answer. But to at least be able to say, there's someone you can talk to and we can see if we can match you up with, X resource, or, even just to have somebody to talk to when you're dealing with that, I think is a really valuable resource to have.
And there's a lot of times, too, where there's really not much more I can do, but I'll just tell people and just like, if you just need to call and vent or you just need a lentful ear, I'll just be here. And sometimes that's enough.
What are most of your distress? Is it mostly neighbor issues, or is this more family?
It's a combo. I would say sometimes it can be, like, as Kristen mentioned, it can be like neighborly disputes. It can just even be, a lot of times too, especially like post-COVID, we've got a lot of people who are now like in blended families or who are now like merging households. And for example, too, like if you have, somebody who's now like a caregiver for somebody who's sick, that is a ton of stress in the family. There's sometimes a lot of guilt with that. And again, sometimes people are being put in positions they just don't want to be in. And then like, how do I deal with that?
Right, coping.
We've had a couple people who, like their loved ones are actively dying, and then they're like, I might need help with this, or like we may need these like pieces of durable medical equipment in the meantime, and and I'll let them know like if whatever they need, just give me a call, and I'll do what I can to help.
Okay. So that full-time, what's it, about 25 hours a week for you?
Well, I did 25,000 because because the digital literacy is taking up so much of my time, I'm not even going to be able to start a search, to be honest with you, until probably closer to when that ends.
Okay.
And that funding expires at the end of the calendar year. So my thought is that if I could get somebody closer to full-time, but even if it's just for half a year, so I can at least get going with that, because to be honest with you, I'm not going to have time to start a search until digital literacy winds up.
Do you need any certifications or anything? Because I have a big business network that I could.
Yeah, I am an independently licensed social worker, so I can supervise anybody. Ideally, I would love to have somebody who has a bachelor's degree and maybe going for a master's in either social work or counseling or something along those lines. But at this point, like I just need a body, so I'm willing to be flexible.
Okay.
Even if there's like certain things that like, because right now it's like I can deal with the big fires, but then I'm also putting out all the small ones.
Yeah,
So it's like
it's not-
even
it's
if I
not
can have
helpful for you.
somebody just to take, because like I'm starting to burn out. I am not afraid to admit it. I can't even take any time off without coming back to like emails and voicemails that I've got to constantly deal with. So anything that I could do to help take even a little bit of pressure off of me, and then it's hard too, because one of the things that sucks about my work is that I am a mandated reporter, as is public safety. I've had to file with all of the agencies for the state.
Yep.
And when I have to do that, I get some really ticked off town folk.
Yep.
And it would be nice too to have a assistant, which most towns have, because then you can have that good cop, bad cop rapport. Or like I can be the a-hole, but then like that person is still someone that they can reach out to, they can get the support of,
Right.
until like they're no longer either mad at me or until they realize like I'm not, like my good outweighs my bad. And like I said, I've had that cyclically happen here. It's not like it doesn't, but for that time, I get nothing out of those people, and that is really concerning because I know that they still have a need.
Okay. And we've exhausted the ARPA. We can't.
They are,
get
but
any more
the time deadline is really where you're at.
Okay.
Because
All right. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Because I just threw a lot at you all.
And that's what it
Well,
looks
that's
like
because
on the
there's a
budget.
lot in there.
Yeah.
That's why.
I should be in public safety. I know what social workers went through. Yep.
So, yeah, I've got a couple of like scoping out questions, Victoria. So, if you know, like, what percent of your time is really focused at the public safety group? How much of your time is them calling you into things?
At right now, it's really just situational. Maybe 5 to 10% of my time. Sometimes what we'll do too is that we, like, if say for example, they have like a resident that's been in distress, they may work with me, say like, hey, do you know, like, does this person have a worker that you're aware of? Have you had contact with this family? There's been some times where like I've talked to them and said, look, like, you need to file on this just for us to make sure that we can do what we need to do to get in what they need. Sometimes they may ask me, do you know of any other additional resources? I don't push it with public safety, but I also let them know that like I'm here. Like I said, I have had, I have had several officers call me like when I'm not here, just saying, look, can you help us out with this? Do you have any suggestions? Can you call Susie in the morning? Can you like help them can you talk to them now and help them just calm down so you can touch base with them in the morning? And like I said, I gladly do it. I would say like otherwise, it's kind of more just situational beyond that.
So, and again, scoping things out, looking at the senior population, I qualify. So, but I won't be needing any digital literacy.
Well, I'm proud of you. Good job.
Mary's too with it for that.
Well, okay, so.
Little braggadocio going on here.
I am. I'm doing a braggadocio. No, my point is actually a very serious one. I just pulled up the study, the UMass study, and I'm looking at the number and percentage distribution of Berlin's population by age category 2021.
Yeah.
Age 80 and older, okay. I could see where that might be a digital literacy group. That's 216 people, 6% of the population. Then you look at age 60 to 79, that's 954 people, 29% of the population. So, when I look at that, and I know a lot of these people, actually, because they don't all, but a lot of them are at 19 Carter, and some of them I've just known over the years, the several decades I've been in town. I met a lot of the townies over the years. So I get it, and I know there's a certain group that you just, somebody's going to have to handle the computer stuff for them.
Yeah.
So, I have a little sense that things are on fire here, but I'm trying to put a little water on it that I'm not sure that we're in such dire straits, and I want to make sure that we're tapping into the volunteer and other services, because there's an incredible service called Neshoba Neighbors. And I think when you look at, I don't want to get to the mental health piece, which I think is probably across the town and where we need some focus, because that's always a problem. That's a problem with public safety. It's a problem, a lot of ways. But on the aging piece, I really think that we as a town, we got a lot of hard decisions to make on budgeting with revenues, because it's basically our real estate taxes, right? So So when I look at that, I think it's really important for us to maximize what we can do on a volunteer basis. Plus, I think it's really good for the community to do that. And that includes the people on the Council on Aging. To the extent those people can relieve you of things you're presently doing, I think it's good. Now, I know Kristen's got has stated an objective, which I think is a good one, is that we don't want to rely entirely on volunteers. But this committee here is a group of volunteers. And I think we can help a lot
So,
with the town.
I hear you.
So I'm
Yeah.
putting that out there.
Can
to
I say
think
something
about.
first?
Yeah.
Because
Sure.
I take an oppositional point of view.
Do that.
Um,
I'll see you in the hallway after.
So,
Mary on money on Mary.
after 38 years in public ed, and we always have we have volunteers, we can fill that in. Volunteers are helpful, but they're not reliable, and they never will be reliable
point, yes.
because they have a life. And if we feel that something is important, whether it's literacy or something else, we're talking about literacy, technical literacy, we can't rely on volunteers. There will be volunteers who will help and lighten the load, but we have to take the responsibility for making it happen. I'm a volunteer too, and I worked in education all those years, and volunteers were very important, but they're not reliable, and you can't guarantee they'll be there, and you can't guarantee that they will be good at helping. That's another skill set. So I don't want to put down volunteers, Lord knows, but I don't think you can build a program relying on volunteers.
No. There's a liability issue as well that concerns me greatly when it comes to professionals.
Well, sure, and my comments are really focused right now on the senior population, the Council on Aging, and what they do.
I understood that.
I don't want to get into that mental health side, although there's overlap. I get there's overlap.
I understood
I'm really
that.
scoping it out for that population, right?
And I join you in that crowd.
I know.
But it's funny because I live in the co-housing community, which is 2 developments. And the development I'm in, I haven't had time to partake in it, but we've been doing aging in place has been the big topic. And if you don't know anything about co-housing, the way we work is we work by doing what we call circles, which is where everybody gets to talk and listen to each other. And in this case, it's not so much working towards consensus as getting an idea of all the needs of being in community. But it's also kind of interesting to talk about digital literacy, because even to live in our community, we do so much by Zoom and email that even for the older folk living there, they have literacy because we can't function without it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add to that too. We're putting age numbers on this. I work full-time in real estate, and we're totally digital. I have clients who say, "Well, I can't be signing a document. Yeah, I can't do it." And I have to go say, "Yes, you will, because this is how it goes. I have no paper. You have to learn how to do this." And these are people in their 50s.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not just 80-year-olds and 70-year-olds and 60-year-olds. It's 50-year-olds as well. So I think that, that's all I want to say about that.
I mean, I am sympathetic, Mary, to your point about, volunteerism being a good niche for the community and being a good thing for neighbors, helping out neighbors. I am very sympathetic to that. What I am finding, and I'm sure if you talk to other COA directors or social service directors, they would tell you, is that the niche of work that Neshoba Neighbors is doing is not the needs that we are coming across. One of the big things that we are having is that we have a lot of seniors who need some home health aid services like bathing, toileting, dressing assistance. And unfortunately, Aging Services in North Central Mass is having a hard time getting workers down here to cover Berlin. We are their end of their catchment area. We are one of about 40 towns. And when all of their vendors are based at a Leominster, Fitchburg, or Gardner, who the heck wants to come down to Berlin for 1 or 2 clients?
Yeah.
No one. Now, I know that Clinton had proposed to use funding to get a home health aide on their payroll to service Clinton residents, because themselves, us, Bolton, they're not satisfied with the work that is being given. And I can say that a lot of the calls that I am getting in, we're getting calls like, do you provide transportation for Boston for medical appointments? No, we can't. I cannot have the I cannot have the van going to Boston. It'd be a whole day thing and then we're out. You know, are you having home health aides that can come out and do this? Well, for people who are on a very fixed budget or who don't have the services for private pay, this is not something that our private health insurance is going to cover.
Right.
So unless you have the money to pony up for it, I'm sorry, you're now on Elder Services waiting list, which, good luck, I don't know how long that is currently. So that is the thing too, and honestly too, you have to understand the work that I do, I have to follow the laws of HIPAA. And to be flat out honest with you, I highly doubt that the 3,700 residents of Berlin are going to want to volunteer who already lives in town for some of this very sensitive stuff to then have access to it. And that is something too that like I am very mindful of, because I think that that is some of the reason why I have made some groundwork. I don't live here. I'm not from here.
Right.
I care about the residents, but I have a level of disconnect that I think also gives me a little bit more credence sometimes versus like, you know, like, oh, this is Susie. Susie's lived here her whole life. Susie's had a judgment. I've had a judgment about this. And this happens in all small towns. This is not Berlin specific. And that is something, like I said, because of the very sensitive nature of stuff I deal with, I really have to make sure that is front and center, and I make that abundantly clear to everybody. You know, your information stays confidential. When we have van rides, I make sure that the residents know it goes between me, the dispatcher that we have as a work-off person, and the drivers. We're the only ones who know who's going where. We ask for an emergency contact, God forbid, in case there's a car accident or an emergency, we got to get in hold with somebody, but beyond that, that's all we really do. I have a HIPAA compliant software that I am using to document the stuff that I'm doing for the mental health purpose side of things. It's because, again, I have to have something in place, but like I said, there are certain limitations to what I can and cannot do that make things a bit more challenging. So, like, a lot of my work is very much, it ebbs and flows, the rate of which I'm being needed. It seems like everybody seems to call on a Friday, or it seems that everybody seems to call, like, on, like, the Sunday of a long weekend, and then I'm not in on Monday, and it's like, sorry I didn't get you to Tuesday. It cyclically seems to happen.
Victoria, I think
Yeah.
that people appreciate what you do. I'm asking these questions because I'm looking for areas to sharpen the pencil where it is appropriate to have Council on Aging do more rather than less. But I'm looking for those areas. I'm asking you, to think about it in that way. I see the supplemental funding requests and so on. And one of the problems with ARPA funds is people use them for salaries, frankly, and that's something that you have to sustain year on year on year. And so I know we did it, and I know we had serious social needs during the pandemic, and so I can understand why we did that. But I'm asking you, maybe I'm asking Kristen too, is to say, well, is there a way to put some of this, call it out as part of public safety, not call it out as a separate social, we are a small town, and some of us have to wear multiple hats, right? So I'm just, I'm asking, where can we do that in this proposed budget? The
How long you
places
been
that
in
we
your
can
role?
do that. And then,
3.5 years.
3.5.
and then there's things like, I know the powder, I qualify, I get the Powderhouse News, it gets mailed to me. And I look at it, and I like it. I love the stories about things in town. There's ads in that. Do we offset?
So the Powderhouse News, because we have regained control of it again and we're getting the printing done through Clinton Offset, we are not allowed to put in ads. We're allowed to ask for sponsorships. So if we were to go through a publishing company, they are allowed to solicit for ads. But state law says that we can only ask for sponsorship. So we do ask for sponsorship. We get it, but it does not cover the cost.
So
fully.
who we? Town of Berlin?
Yeah.
Does Council on Aging, can they do it?
They are doing it. At this point, the sponsorship.
That's a very small question. Does the state law, if you know, apply also to an organization like that? That's not the town. It's a
Well, I believe if it's like taxpayer dollars being used to purchase it,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
the hiccup.
Yeah,
that's
that's
the-
why only
that's
like
the-
Friends of can solicit
Okay.
donations and
Okay.
things of that
We
nature.
ca- we
It looks like a
can't,
donation
yeah.
unless it's a sponsorship.
Yeah. So what we've done is that we've sent letters out to businesses locally. We've explained to them what's going on. We've had a few who've come in. We just got another round of sponsorships in, but like I said, it's really like a lot of the small local businesses that I think are having their own challenges at the moment, that they're just trying to be, good neighbors, and they're really trying to help us out. But it's, that is also a challenge.
So as we're getting more digitally literate and so on, is there, there was some conversation, and I guess I didn't listen carefully enough about this, but to go to a digital version here with the option to get a paper copy if you can't handle digital.
Yeah, well, we already put the digital version of it up on the COA website, but we are asking people if they want to just do the digital versions of it, we can just email them the direct link to the website every time.
Could we put it on the homepage for the town?
Did we not have that up there? I thought it was up there.
Not on the town homepage, just under the COA column.
Yeah, I think the problem is if something's buried under.
Yeah.
People
Well, that is-
people don't
To
get to it.
DED will put it
Yeah.
on the homepage.
And good news is that we are going to be having a class about Town of Berlin resources, and the town website, the
Which we're
basics of the
working on.
town
Good.
website is going to be one of them. So.
All right, that makes me happy.
Well, this might be a moot point if it's really the move going to the digital on that. But one thing we learned from a few weeks ago from our treasurer collector, Paul, he got significant savings by moving out basically to a company that did all the mailings. And because we didn't qualify for bulk, but once he moved to that company, he could get bulk mailing rates. So I guess that'd
Yeah.
be one thing if there is things about mailing things out, what can be done to get bulk mailing rates? Because he got significant
Yeah.
savings. I know a lot of it is just from lack of the labor that we have to go through, but it was significant.
So we previously had, before Clinton Offset was doing the printings for the Powder House, we were using Liturgical Press. And Liturgical Press, they're their own company, and they were doing the mailings and the printings out of the Powder House. We still had to pay for postage, but they basically kind of printed everything out for us. The problem is that they were soliciting their own advertisements, but we were costing them money, and they basically told us unless we can generate this amount of advertising money, you're not worth it for us. So that was, and that is one of the hangups that you have when you go to a printing company and you are kind of taking that control away. Some people have no problem with that. Some towns are able to generate that ad revenue very quickly, and then that goes back to whatever it comes back. It will help again to supplement the postage costs, but we're not there in Berlin, and we really haven't ever been.
I want to just say one thing too about boards and committees and government. It's very different from a nonprofit. It's very different from the private sector. The laws that we are in and the scrutiny that we are under through audits and everything else, boards and committees, except for those that have specific statutory authority, should be in advisory roles. They should really have that particular role because people have incredible knowledge and depth to bring to the table, but the jobs that we do require training and education. I don't go to your job and try to tell you how to do it just because I run a town. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. If you're in an advisory role,
It would be entertaining. I'd love
it
to
might
watch.
be really entertaining because I'd have no clue what I was talking about. And I always say, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. But the problem is we are under heavy scrutiny. Government continues to be under increasing scrutiny, and for good reason in some instances.
Absolutely.
My concern is liability, and I do spend a lot of my time looking at things that I have to try to adjust and fix because they haven't been done the right way before. So that's my challenge.
Yeah, point taken,
And
Kristen.
this is a very ticklish area.
It is.
Good
I'm
Lord.
being honest because I
No,
just,
And to be
it's,
honest with you guys too, like I'm an independently licensed social worker in the Commonwealth. I have my own ethics board that I have to report to beyond. So like legally something may be ethical at the town level, but if it's not ethical at the social work board level,
Right.
no, I'm not doing it.
So you have the double mix of town.
It's
and-
super fun.
Yeah.
Can I also just point something out here? We had tried last year to get your salary that was on social work off of ARPA.
We did.
So.
And we had it in the
so
budget.
If we think,
I remember,
so if we
I
think
know.
about, when we think about this, it was because of other changes we had to do late in the budget
Yep.
that unfortunately had to keep it on ARPA. So we should almost be thinking like we had done that last year
We did, that's a very good point.
when we think about this.
So getting
Well, we're
rid of
trying to
ARPA,
make-
are you saying?
But this is not the first time.
Well,
We
yeah.
tried, we
We've
had
looked
her
at
in
it.
the budget
Yeah,
last year.
we
Yeah, getting her off of ARPA and into the budget, but
Okay.
then we had to make last minute changes.
So, I mean, when we're looking at the changes in your,
Changes we're familiar with.
not your supplemental, but in the regular budget, we had wanted that to be completely off of ARPA last year. And so we shouldn't be looking at it as a jump
True.
this year.
Good point. Thanks, Julie. Important work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I think I had enough, don't you think?
You never
For you-
disappoint me, Mary.
For your new hire, could they be in school for social work, or do they have to have a degree? Or-
I would say it would just, at this point, like, I would take it on as a case-by-case basis. I think what we can do is, if I get the approval for the supplemental, I would work with Kristen to create like a, basically like a job description that I think it would need to be at.
Okay.
And then what we could do too is just make sure that, you know, I would make sure that they were rigorously trained in what I would need them to know.
Right.
And then,
Yep.
you know, we could kind of take it from there.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody was in school, my concern would just be that, like, they probably would just have a conflict with time.
Right,
Considering
yeah,
that
that's
especially
what
like for
usually-
like undergrad, a lot of the classes are during the day. If somebody was like, you know, going to grad school, those classes tend to be more later in the day, so they probably could do like split days or something like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Victoria.
All right, next I think we have assessing. Sure. And I don't know how many of you know Linda Barisha, who is our new assessor that started back in September.
I met, I've been in doing business.
You've been in doing business, there you go. Taking
Yeah.
care of business. All
Is
right.
there anybody you don't know, Mary?
Yes, there's lots of people I don't know. Lots of people.
Knows them all.
Lots of people. We got like, 700 more people in town in the last few years, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know hardly any of those people.
Okay. Okay.
I could go hang out though, somewhere.
Yeah, you could. Is it Linda? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Linda, thank you.
Linda, you have the floor.
Okay, this is my first time, so I really need some help.
Don't be shy.
Because I worked in
I
a
won't
previous
ask any
town, but we
questions.
did not have this.
Yeah.
I never had to go in front of. So I don't really have a lot of changes when it comes to the salaries. The board is 49. We are saving some money on the part-time wages. We had our previous admin in a higher rate. The new one that we hired, it's in a lower rate because of the experience, so we're saving $2,351. So it's not any increase in this category. Kristen, if you could go a little bit at the expenses. So at the expenses, I have an increase this year on Vision. Vision is my CAMA database. They went up on the price. This is the database that I have all the properties.
What's VisG? Is that just like a?
That's Vision, Government Solution. That's the acronym.
Okay.
But it's a
So all the data
software.
is, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a camera, yeah, all the data, that's for the real estate, so they went up a little bit we have everything in the cloud. And then we had the CMRPC, that is the maps.
Yep,
And
Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, they do maps for us.
Okay.
So they went up slightly, $351. I tried to negotiate and lower the price for lower hours, but I was not sure if it's going to affect different departments like the building, because the maps are shared between different departments, so I let it at the same hours
These
for
are really
this year.
like fixed contractual increases
Correct.
that you're talking about for software programs and services that we already
Yeah,
have.
and everything went up, so basically I did not have a lot of room for negotiation here. The other software that I use, it's RRC, that's the software for personal property, and that went up 1,700.
I'm sorry, I made it too big. Oh, now the news is showing up. My goodness, I'm sorry.
I'm getting a twitch.
However, I managed to save some money in Nearmap, which I saved $1,000 by negotiating because I had the same software in another town, and I was like, no. It was cheaper there. It's nothing different here. So basically, they gave me a little bit of a break, so that is good. Sickles, these are requirements by the Department of Revenue that I need to go and inspect every 10 years. We have like a database. I don't have enough of staff to do that, so I have to hire a data collector from other companies that are approved by the DOR, and their prices went slightly up this year for $400. It's because of the gas. They use their own cars.
Is it just real estate that they're doing non-cyclicals, or is it?
Yes. RRC includes the sickles in the personal property, but the real estate is separated.
Got it. Yeah.
And if you just can, thank you,
What
Kristen.
do we pay a consultant for?
They do the inspections to assess
Okay,
the values.
okay.
Other than that,
Oh, you're talking about I thought you were talking about the cyclical still. I'm
No,
sorry.
it says
the
consultant,
consultant line
$4,500.
item. So those are still different valuations when you have to have something
correct.
complicated.
Or when I have an ATV case, or if I have a
What's the ETB case?
when someone disagrees with my decision when I deny them, then they have the right to.
Ah, okay.
It's the
Gotcha.
appellate tax board.
Oh, wow.
They are the higher power, if you will.
Abatement tax court? No.
Appellate.
Appellate
tax court.
Tax board.
Tax board. Okay.
Yeah.
So say someone applies for an
ATV,
abatement because they don't think
appellate
they should be paying as much taxes as they're being assessed.
Yep.
Then they can appeal to the appellate tax board and say,
Right.
I don't agree with the town's assessor's determination to deny or decision to deny my abatement.
Okay.
Actually, I had one this morning.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
An ATV case. Other than
It
that,
wasn't me, okay?
No, you're next.
It's okay, Mary, you didn't need to disclose that. That's okay.
Besides the dues, the board and me, we have to pay some dues. I have to be a member of certain organization. They went up a little bit this year, and some of the conferences and meeting that I have to go for my certification, I have to have certain credits per year. So they went slightly a little bit up. And this year I requested a cell phone, which was not in the previous years, because I think it's important. I'm in the field, I go in people's houses, and I should be able to have a cell phone if something goes wrong, and I can call, the police department or.
I'm sorry, is that on this budget or is that the supplemental?
It'd go up
Yeah,
a
the
little
cell
higher.
phone was $480.
Okay.
And I can tell you, I have firsthand experience with a former assessor of mine who had to call the police because they were in someone's house and they were backed up against a wall. So I'm 100% supportive of the cell phone. I think it's only professionally and safety-wise appropriate.
Today, something happened with a data collector. He was in the field doing sickle, so apparently it was a minor incident similar to that one of the taxpayers just slammed the door and.
People get mad when it comes to taxes, unfortunately. They don't like them. I don't know if
Especially
you've
this, I mean,
noticed.
with the state of everything, it's
Everyone's just mad.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just really dangerous.
more fuel to
I
the
guess
fire.
the other question would be, I mean, is there anything, I know most businesses now, I mean, a lot of people, most people have cell phones, and that people just continue to use their own cell phone, but they subsidize part of the cost. I mean, has that been something that's
Or like
been
reimbursed,
considered?
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like-
by the state law, it's not a good idea for me to have a work and personnel, because if I ever get subpoenas, they
You
would.
do have to turn over your personal phone if you get subpoenaed.
Correct, and
I
and
run that
that's
risk.
my
Not
life.
everybody
Yes.
is willing to run that risk, and I
Makes sense if you can.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, I wouldn't recommend it just on general principle when you're dealing
Linda
with
and I.
the function.
Yeah.
Linda and I have had this
Linda's dealing with it.
conversation.
No, I just go by, I mean, actually.
Yeah.
No, it's a fair
Most
question.
companies I deal with, that's exactly how.
Because I'm a
Yeah.
How
public
they
figure, so
cover
if they
it.
request.
I mean, it's a
they
good
would let
question,
me.
but not in these
Yeah,
circumstances.
I would lose 2 phones because I lose 1 phone all the time, which is now why I have this watch that drives me nuts. But literally, anything on here, I get a public records request, this phone gets handed over. So everything on there becomes a public record,
Yeah,
essentially,
public record.
that anyone can look through. So it's not the best idea. Fortunately, I'm really boring and I sit home in my PJs with my dog, so I'm not really worried about people looking at my phone, but, you know. The one thing we can do is the Public Safety Department have a FirstNet program where some of the inspectors can also get cell phones through that program, and it comes out to, is it $36 a month? Or
I believe 36 or 34 a month. yeah.
It's plus a little bit of taxes. So we were actually able to lower that from the initial cost that we thought it was going to be, because we confirmed that we can piggyback on their subscription service.
So is there a separate charge for the hardware, or is that what are we looking at under the? What does that what is
Like
that
the
about?
actual physical phone, is
That's
that what you're
just for
asking?
the monthly cost. Oh, for the phone itself, it comes with a free phone.
It comes
everything's
with a free
free.
phone, so
Everything's
that is
free
the
now.
whole,
That's the
everything is
service.
included.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Joanne is my lister, she will go on the field, and when she is out in the field, she can use the same cell phone. But on the weekends, I will take it at home, because I like to just see if something is urgent on the emails as
So we
well.
can find you now, we know that. We
Yes.
have-
Bad rabbit hole to go
We have the
down.
number,
So,
you can find you.
all right, so let me go back down to the bottom here. And this is what it looks like on the big budget here. So like I said, we were able to cut back a little bit on the cell phone, and I believe the consulting, we cut back a
Yes,
little bit
we
as well.
cut, yeah.
So initially, the expenses were a bit higher, and we were able to scale them back on this revised request. So we sat down, Linda and I went through everything.
Yeah, we did revise it. Are we going to talk about the reval?
Oh, I'm
That I
sorry.
need the money, it's a
Yep.
lot of money.
So, yeah, and
Yeah.
just so you know, we're going to talk about what's going to be a special article, as opposed to, because it's a one-time fee. This is going to be a $55,000 special article for the FY26 revaluation. It's a 5-year valuation that you have to do. It's quite costly. It is a lovely unfunded state mandate, and that
Yeah.
is the quoted cost to
What does
undertake
it do? Just
So,
if-
so basically, these are DOR requirements. They go and analyze and review sales information. They have to measure. They have to visit every house in the town. It's like every 5 years. It used to be 10, and then they went to 5. But we have something in between, like we do interns every year. But this is kind of
It's to
more
keep
of
records
major.
accurate, and obviously for people that
Yeah,
aren't doing
they
things
review the income and
that aren't
expense.
getting the permits and stuff like that, you'll be laying them into your house.
Yeah,
and,
they have
nice
like
illegal garage.
And this is
so
a
you
third
build a
party?
backyard.
Correct. You're hiring
No,
to
the
do this?
refinished
I can't
basement
do
and
that
all this
legally.
stuff
It
that
has
weren't
to
there on
be-
the records
But
before.
there's a lot of certification that's they need to do by the DOR.
But it's the town, is it the town's hiring a third party
yes,
to do the
that's-
study?
Correct.
That's what I'm
There's
checking.
only
But
3
that's separate
companies
from this
that
because
are
that's just the
They're doing
approved by the
okay.
DOR,
cost.
so it's vision
The
making.
point of it, though, is to keep fairness in
Government?
the system.
Yeah.
No, fairness in the
You didn't
system.
go down.
Because people who are improving their homes.
I know. There's, yeah, everybody's.
And
there's always
they're not paying the taxes that you are, because
Yeah.
you do have the permits.
Yeah.
It's about fairness in the taxation
Yeah,
system.
yeah, true.
I never thought I'd ever say those words.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing, sorry, I jumped to the big one, but I forgot to mention that the annual revaluation expenses, the smaller ones that have to be done, have
Every
their
year.
own line item. Linda rolled that into her budget, which is why there's such a large increase that you see the 37.8%
I was gonna
increase.
ask.
Is
Yep.
because 17,300 moved out of line 142,500 and moved up into her budget.
Okay.
So that way she doesn't have to account for 2 separate line items
So
for it.
that's an annual thing that happens
So-
when it needs to happen? Is that what happens when those building permits come in, or what? what is that annual?
Yeah,
annual
no,
activity? What is that?
the interim is I analyze all the sales from January to
Ah.
December the previous year. That is how I come up with the percentage, how much I go up in the
Okay.
whole town. The permits are my new growth.
Right, understood. Well, but there's permits for remodeling, is that, that's not new growth, is it, remodeling? Remodeling goes into new growth.
Hey, depends what kind of remodeling
Take
are
a
you
look at your
doing.
property card.
I know, I look at it, I look at it a lot, more than you want to know.
Yes, addition, remodeling, it all depends on what kind of
Okay.
remodeling. If it's some kind of basic flooring, not really, but if it's something more upscale
And
and...
the skylight, maybe?
The cathedral ceiling. I'm in the
There you
camera, I
go.
should not...
There you go.
See what they do? See what they do? They turn the skylight into a cathedral ceiling, right?
Oh, you know.
You got a view of the sky.
It was a
I mean,
closet,
view
now it's a
of-
bedroom.
it's just,
You have a better view
yeah,
at night,
exactly.
so...
$5,000 more.
As a real estate agent and I'm valuing your house, I'm going to say, hey, you got that cathedral ceiling. It's worth more.
It's a greenhouse now. You
It's a
got
view. It's like an ocean view.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about that.
Property. Skyfront property.
Yeah, waterfronts are always in the different tax tables, and it
Oh, yeah.
depends what kind of... I believe in Leicester we have 3 different categories, waterfront 1, 2, and 3. So
Yeah.
it depends on the view.
Which was more like pond 1, pond
Yeah.
2, and pond 3.
Or the lake, yeah.
Size of your
Right.
pond.
Yeah. So, yeah, the reval is done every 5 years. I'm sure Molly before me had this before, and then the interims, it's every year. These are
That's the
DOR
big one.
requirements. Without doing this, we basically cannot send the tax, I mean, cannot do anything or send the taxes. Yeah, it's like more in-depth. They look at the income approach. They review income and expense statements from the commercial, so it's kind of more in-depth. That's why we have to hire a company. They have more consultant. It's going to be a lot of planning, a lot of people in and out. So the reval is at 2026, but I need to start preparing as of this July with the planning and everything. So I request it to be kind of more like a less burden to do like 25 and 25 in both fiscal years, if that's, or however.
And the other thing too is with a special article, if it does go from one year to another, it's there. You don't have to worry about having to spend it all by the end of the fiscal year.
Exactly, and that's why I recommended, and I'll tell you the other reason why I'm recommending we do the 55,000. There's 2 reasons why I recommend we do it this year. One, the capital committee just passed their capital plan. They're only using 67,000 of free cash, and they're eligible to use up to $500,000. Now, granted, that doesn't include the school information because we haven't received that yet, but
And
they took their votes.
But also, that was discussed was because of the townwide building assessment was done.
That was going to be my
There's-
second point.
There's anticipation that in the coming years, we're going to have some big capital expenses coming in. So the goal this year was to only cover what we actually had to cover.
Right. So it was low on the capital plan, and I would suggest something like this so that we don't get to next year and all of a sudden realize this, the facility study, you know, we're getting the revised copy out so we can get it to everybody. It's alarming. And you know, I think people are going to be concerned, and it's going to eat up more free cash than we possibly have. So I think it makes sense to put it all in. It's an article, like June said, it carries over year to year, and then you can start planning and get however ahead you can. You know, if you need the money, you would have it there. So that way we don't have to wait till the last minute, because I've also seen when you wait to the last minute on these kinds of things, because all of the people that do this work, and by all of them I mean there's not very many, they all get booked with other cities and towns too. So you want to make sure you lock them in.
Yeah, I would have to sign everything and start as of July 1st, because that's technically the FY 2025, and it's a lot of work and a lot of preparation. It's literally a book of standards.
So that reval has to be completed in fiscal year '26, is that?
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to have everything in by July 1st this year. Or 20,
2026,
you would-
it needs
All
to
right,
be.
okay.
Yeah.
You started at the beginning of fiscal '25, so that you
Correct,
could be
the
done by the end
preparation.
of fiscal
So this year,
'26,
July.
or whatever the deadline is.
So rather than start and
Because it's a lot of
stop by-
preparation, you need to book, they need to find the staff, and it's a lot of people around the town.
Mhm.
So do the results need to be in by July 1, 2025? Is that
2026.
by 2026? Okay.
Correct,
So-
but the
Okay.
preparation usually,
Yeah.
and especially when you're dealing with, because for the money, I try to.
So when they're doing that study, do they require any of your time? So you have to put additional time
Normally been spent.
to pulling information or doing whatever they need?
Yes,
Okay,
and
so-
pretty much
You're saying
everything
the
goes good or
facilities
wrong or every
review
question.
is going to be alarming?
Okay.
What we have to put in the facilities?
Deferred maintenance.
Yeah, it's been a lot of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not very good at maintenance part of things.
Yeah,
We mean well, but
Oh,
it's a
it's
thing.
gonna catch up with us now.
I just wanted to, I'll show capital after, but. just wanted
Is
to
there anything
keep the
else to your
spreadsheet.
budget we should?
Nope, I think that's it, unless you had other questions on.
Mhm.
It wasn't so bad, was
You
it?
did well, thank you.
No, for the first time.
Nice meeting you, Linda. Thank
know what
you.
to expect.
Thank
I
you
have
for
to say-
making me
Thank you.
I have to say,
comfortable.
it's really nice when people come in and talk about their budgets, because it gives us like a much more well-rounded view of what you're dealing with than just looking at a spreadsheet.
Yes, and if someone has a question, absolutely, you are more familiar what is it
Mhm.
and what we do.
We talk to people around town, and then when it comes to town meeting and votes, the more information we have about why we voted on a particular line in the budget, if it comes up as an issue, we can talk to it.
Mhm.
And so that's helpful for us to know why. And it's going to be where there's increases or where there's something unusual. People will,
Mhm.
it depends, year to
yeah.
year. It's not predictable.
Yeah, and it's, I am a big fan of education, you know, when you, because I know when people come and ask me questions, when I sit down and educate, it's absolutely a different outcome.
Mhm.
Any other question?
I don't
Yep.
think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you all. Have a good
Thanks for,
night.
thanks for staying around tonight.
We have conservation.
Last but not least, eating my favorite candy back there.
I know, well, I'll leave
Sorry.
the rest for you.
Thank you.
Is candy back there?
Let me bring up the conservation budget. All right.
I'm glad you found a seat.
Yeah.
More over there. I was going to move this one out, and then I got distracted.
Roger was very gentlemanly and
Oh, did he?
found
He
us
gave us a
seats.
seat?
Yes.
That was kind of him.
Okay.
Does everyone know who you are?
Oh, does everyone know who I am?
No, I don't know who you are.
Mr. Laporte.
I've had you guys over to my house.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
You know,
so
we
you
have
know.
2 new members, so
Yeah, well,
I'm trying to be polite with my introduction.
Does everybody know who Maddie is?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
No, I don't.
So Maddie is our conservation agent,
Hi, Maddie.
and this is all about Maddie. This really has nothing to do with me. Other than without Maddie, I would not be here. So this is Maddie's wages. She works 8 hours a week. Last year, just last year, I think we were hoping to get an increase of 4 hours a week, and we did not. So this year, we're hoping for 2 hours a week additional, so that she can get paid for all the work she does.
Can I just
'Cause-
double check something? We had to do a transfer request.
I was
That got corrected, right?
Yeah,
That
in
was
the
my
budget.
fault.
So-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so technically, it's not gonna be as big of a jump as what you see,
Correct.
because we actually should have had appropriated, is it 200?
It looks big. Yeah. So when everything went a little sideways, and because when I came in, we started evaluations late because I came in mid-September. So some of the adjustments that we did last year, this was just one that didn't get into the budget and we didn't catch it. So we had to do the reserve fund transfer to catch up for 24. So it's a bigger jump. It looks like a bigger jump in 25, but it's really not because it's including 24
It's
and 25.
including the correction to the previous-
It's including
okay.
the correction. Sorry. It's my fault. I'm not perfect.
See, these are the things though, so that people, so it doesn't look like.
It doesn't look as big, right?
Yeah.
There's also a there's, I think, is there an adjustment in there? I can't remember. There's a supplemental funding request for $3,221, which would be the extra 2 hours that are in there.
Yep.
Which is why I wanted to pull that up. Hold on. I just zoomed right by it, didn't I? There we go.
Yeah.
So that's your additional 2 hours,
Also did a
and
step, market rate adjustment.
that was last year, right?
No.
No, that was just year 2. Okay, yep, so we did a market rate adjustment. That's what I thought, because they all should be about 2%, so that's where we ended up at 6. So this kind of, if you want to explain, kind of gives a little bit of an idea of what Maddie does, which is a lot for just 8 hours a week.
Yep. So Maddie does the minutes. She does all of our treasury work. She does all of our grant stuff. She answers most of our emails now. I keep an eye on them and jump in when I need to, but she takes care of most of the mailings. She sets all the agendas. She does all our DEP filings. What else? I'm pretty coordinate site walks. What else did I write up there?
Oh, she was certified this past year, wasn't she?
She is a certified conservation commissioner by the MACC, Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners. Yes.
So there was significant training to get there, and then I assume there's ongoing training, continuing education.
Yep.
For that as well.
Yep. And you know, as anybody who does minutes knows, that can take half a week's of, you know, depending. We've had a very challenging summer. I will say that. Very challenging. We narrowly escaped a lawsuit. And
I've learned a whole lot about conservation.
yeah, I learned a whole lot about legal stuff.
See, we're
Yeah.
a little information exchange over here.
Yeah, so, and Maddie's been great keeping us on point, which is also, she also keeps all our files, digitally and paper. And, you know, one of the things, especially on bigger projects, we need to keep really meticulous files and notes and make sure the minutes are very accurate, because sometimes we may end up in court.
Planning, zoning, and conservation, when the regulatory agencies, the minutes have to be so precise. I mean, our minutes, especially for Select Board and or FinCom, are mostly centered around motions. Here, you're talking technical minutes that really center around comments made by developers, consultants, you know, experts in the field. And so
It's going to be used in court. Yeah.
It's pretty, it's, yeah,
Right.
it's a lot.
And you know, at this point, every filing we have to treat the same way. You know, we never know what's going to go sideways and what could eventually end up needing to be very meticulous.
Yeah.
And then I think, Carolyn, did you have were you level on the expenses? Yep.
Yep.
You're level on the expenses side. So it was just that increase on the personnel plus the additional 2-hour request.
Yep.
Well, that seems pretty straightforward. Wow.
Talk about your volunteering too at Burbank.
Oh, that is so cool.
Who is it?
So,
Yep, so I started a research project up at Ager Woods. So during the summer we've
she's
been
a
doing...
certified bird bander.
I am, yeah. So we started a breeding season study, so we're capturing birds, banding them. We have to do it at least 5 years. So last year was our first year up there doing it. So you go out in the summer and, you know, catch birds and band them, and hopefully they come back the following years.
Is that off Linden? I don't know where that is.
Yeah, So- it is. It's up on Ball. Yeah, off
Ball
of
Hill.
Ball. Yep.
Yep.
So you're banding like with a tracker? Is that? Or just,
So they just get aluminum bands.
so you can just
Yep,
catch
so
them
we
again and then know if
catch
it
them
comes
again.
back? Oh,
Yep,
okay.
exactly. And then we also did owls during the fall.
Saw wet owls.
Yep, little saw-whets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
It was so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so definitely next fall we'll be out there doing it again, so you guys are more than welcome to come join.
Just
Yeah.
dress warmly, wear a headlamp.
Owl feather.
And we're,
She takes
hoping to
you to
get...
the-
Yeah, make you sit in the dark.
Cool.
But
Interesting.
we're hoping to get like Tonto students kind of involved too. Like we're kind of working with the schools. To
That's
kinda
great.
Get outreach.
Yeah.
Because that's how I got into
So-
this field.
So, Maddie, do the birds mind?
I mean, they're not super happy with it.
Big scary human
Yeah.
holding you.
I have to
Yeah,
ask,
they-
I have
the
to
cool-
ask questions.
The
Yeah.
coolest thing was she has to, look them overall for health. I learned how to tell if a bird has a fat layer, and they open up their wings and they can age them by looking at the condition of the feathers and everything. But the coolest thing was how they weigh them. They take a prescription bottle, and put them in head first, and put them on the scale. Works like a dream. Different size bottles for different size
Yeah.
birds.
Yep, you
Yeah,
tear
that's
the-
interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And they
Yep.
don't like flutter all over the place to try to get out of it?
It must disorient them temporarily, right?
Right,
Yep.
and it holds them tight
Yep,
enough,
it
but
pins the wings.
that they can't really.
Yes, they can't wiggle. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
it's really cool. Yep.
Yep.
Wow.
So do you like hawks? Like that bird's that big? Or
Yeah,
like
so
so that's a big pill bottle.
So the net, yeah.
My prescription size.
So the nets are designed for kind of smaller songbirds, but
Oh,
the
okay.
songlets are,
So what's the most
They-
unusual
so-
birds you found this year?
So mostly up there we got like ovenbirds, veeries, hermit thrushes, that sort of thing. Let's see, I'm trying to think. We got black and white warblers, a lot of grackles.
A lot of grackles,
Yeah.
a lot of.
A lot of grackles.
Any there
We
must
got
have been
chickadees,
chickadees,
yep.
yeah.
Downy woodpeckers,
Are
hairy
grackles
woodpeckers.
invasive or
No.
just noisy?
Just noisy. Yep.
And obnoxious.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And they love a crowd.
Yeah.
They do. They do. Yeah, it was really interesting. Like they would just swarm in.
Yeah, it's like 1 minute they're there, and then they're gone.
Yep.
It's-
Yep.
Where'd they go?
As is all your bird seed.
Yeah.
So no juncos, not breeding up there, but they're definitely around right now. So we're set up. But
They're breeding in my yard.
Oh, yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're wonderful on the snow.
Yeah.
And the owls were
The
so
owls are-
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was one that you caught several times.
Yep. So we had one that was hanging out for a couple weeks in a row. We also caught. Let's see. We recaptured somebody else's bird that was banded in Pennsylvania originally, like back in 2020. So that's the really neat thing is one of our birds was caught, I think, in New York. So it's cool seeing their migration patterns,
Yes.
especially
Yeah.
with the saw-whets.
So is there like a nationwide
right.
database that they're
Yep.
tracked in?
Yep. And then there's like a little forum that people will be like, hey, anyone recognize this band number? And people will be like, oh, yeah, I banded that bird, But you report back into the bird band lab and they'll give you exactly when it was banded and where.
Well, you definitely had one of the most interesting jobs we've heard
Yeah.
discussed.
And then, when she was driving through Boylston, she saw a great horned owl caught in the netting at Cyprian Keys.
Oh,
The
in
netting
driving
along
range?
the road.
Oh,
Yeah.
To
God.
keep
Yep.
the golf balls in.
Yeah.
So she rescued that.
Oh, cool.
That's
Yep.
cool.
That's nice.
Which is why when the rec thing comes up, we're insisting on bird netting or netting
Bird
that
safety,
can be
Taken down. so the
Taken
birds
down
don't get caught.
so the
What
bird-
rec?
Yeah.
What rec?
Did you have
Oh, you're talking about the
gloves
field
on with this?
renovation?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's going to
We
suck.
gotta
I know a lot
So
of
what do you
things
mean?
going on.
I didn't even think.
What do you mean, the soccer
Netting that
nets?
comes off the soccer nets?
So they're putting up netting.
Oh, the poor thing must have
to
been so
keep the balls
disoriented.
within
Yeah.
the
Yeah, because they're probably stuck there for a few
Oh,
hours.
okay.
but they will be able to be closed.
I know in January, well,
or
we're just
pulled
still in
open
January.
actually when the fields are
Around
not
our
in
house, there
use,
are
so that we don't end up with
owls
accidental bird
constantly.
catches.
And then I saw that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's
If for no
mating
other reason, then that would
in
be
January?
really not fun for the
There you go,
kids.
Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
Courtship?
Yep.
In
Yep. So
January?
they're starting to set up their
I
territories
told Wayne
now.
we got a lot of courtship going on in our
I
neighborhood.
had
I can hear the
came back
owls
from
at
Cape
night.
one year, my dad son's soccer.
So are you
nets, and they
including
do
this
carve
picture
out
when
guys
that
You
comes?
can-
and
Yeah,
slowly
well, we
basically
told them about
suffocate
that, and
themselves, just guys
because they've
wrong.
come to us already.
I
So,
had-
yeah.
literally cut
I
it.
wouldn't have
up.
thought January was the ideal month
I
for
could not untangle it.
recording, but hey, what do you know?
Yeah, your kids would be going out to the soccer
Maybe that's what I
field.
was hearing last night.
Hey, look at this.
Yeah.
Owls.
So this is a fun way to end the night. We got a bird person.
Right?
That was great.
Yes.
was worth the wait.
It was.
Yeah. So, any questions?
I don't have any.
Any other questions?
Sounds great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a good day.
Got all the
Thanks,
ducks,
darling.
got all the ducks in a row here.
Quack, quack, quack.
Thank
Do
you.
we want to discuss anything about the call we had
Thanks,
today?
guys.
I would like to do that. I would also like to mention one thing about OPEB as well.
Okay.
So which would you like to take first?
Let's do it, go with OPEB.
Okay. So, oh my God,
That's the
thank you
other
so much. You made my
employee,
night.
the-
I can't
the
eat that right
retiree
now.
health.
Oh, the retiree, okay. Yep.
I'm gonna smell at it and stare at it longingly. So we on Monday night, that's the 5th of February, which is next Monday already. We'll be going back to the select board with a list of cost-saving options for OPEB. So as you know from kind of the mini presentation that I gave a few weeks ago, the first year annual premium cost is just under $45,000, and then there's the annual liability that we want to put money toward as well.
Right.
So the annual premium, we're hoping we can do some cost reduction measures. We've already done one at $33,000 by implementing deductibles last year for health insurance, and hoping that, you know, we've got some pretty good options. The Insurance Advisory Committee met today to discuss what we're going to present Monday night, but the question still remains how to fund the liability. And there is a free cash plan, and I know we talked about, you know, the fact that there's a lot of new people on the board. You two were on when that got passed, by the way.
Sorry?
The free cash policy.
Julie
I
actually
was here.
came on that.
Yeah.
And-
Well, you see,
Oh, you came on that night?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
forget it.
She was on 6 months before me, so it must have been that narrow window.
Narrow
Yeah.
window, yeah. So that free cash policy, I know you had kind of wanted to talk about it. What it does anticipate, and I'll show you, it actually, I think, makes more sense looking at it from the budget because it has real numbers in it. So let me make this a little bit bigger. So this is what, if we're going
Keep it
by
on top.
the free cash plan, this is what it would be. So you can have up to $150,000 max in special articles, which we would be under even with that one expensive assessor article. The capital plan can take up to 30%, which was $533,000. They have voted so far for $67,900 on the town side. They also voted to put 10% into capital stabilization, which is line 11 down there, which is a lot of sevens in there, about $178,000.
So excuse me, Kristen, I've got a note, this is an updated version of the guidelines. So fiscal year '23 free cash was $1,777,874, right?
Correct.
So that's how you
Yep,
get
so
to these
the
numbers.
available, I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out first. Line 15 gives you the available balance, which is the $1,777,874. So that's what free cash was certified at for FY23. And so that's what we can spend going forward. So we're always in arrears when it comes to free cash because what you're doing is you're closing out the previous fiscal year, you're getting it certified in the fall, and then you're able to spend it at the next town meeting. Typically for the next fiscal year, but technically you could spend it for the current year.
Yes,
But
we have.
Do we certify it when the town votes? Is that what that means?
No,
Or
no,
it
this is
per capita?
all June.
Yeah,
and-
when they
Okay.
get all the books closed out and all the expenses versus the revenues, then this is what's
Okay.
available that
Gotcha.
hasn't been allocated.
Okay.
June, is that generally like August or September or something? Does that happen, or when does it happen?
But I
That's-
really like it to be done, like, in September.
But it doesn't, you don't
But
get
it
all
depends
closed
on when
out.
the books actually physically get, because they have, everything
Yeah.
has to tie out and, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when you're talking capital stabilization is line 11.
I just put it, yes, and I just put the capital plan back up to what it can be, which is up to 30%, just for this model, just so you can see if we're following the capital plan that's, the free cash plan that's in place, this is what all of those numbers work out to be. So you have your articles up to 150, your capital plan can take up to 30%, which is just over $500,000, and then you've got basically 3 10% categories, which is general stabilization, which you want to put in every year. Capital stabilization, ideally, you want to put in every year. And then OPEB is supposed to be 10%, which hasn't yet been established. The fund was set up, but it hasn't been funded. There's also a section of Mass General Law that would have to be adopted at town meeting in order to move forward with OPEB. I think it's Chapter 32B, Section 9 something. So basically with all of that, you also never spend 25% of it because you never want to deplete all of your free cash in any year. So in the way that all shakes out, you would still have 444, 468.50 rolling over to the next year, plus this balance of 159, 642.10, plus minus or in addition to whatever is left over in capital. So if I
600,000.
Yep, so if I revert this back to what capital just voted, which, hold on, let me go back. Oh, go back. So if capital only votes the 67,900 that they voted so far, you're actually going to roll over 625,104 into the next year. And then our free cash also will increase from anything that's not spent out of the department operating budgets. So say the, police department, for example, whatever they have left over at the end of the year, that does not roll over to the next year. It gets closed out, so it's very different than how the schools do it. It gets closed out and it rolls to something called free cash, which is neither free nor cash. It's basically leftover funds from your operating budget that have to be recertified by the state before they can be used again. And then they have to be reappropriated by town meeting before they can be used again. So again, neither free nor cash was the first thing I learned about free cash, which has always kind of stuck with me. So that's basically how your capital plan would shake out, or your free cash plan would shake out if you go with the current plan. Now, the annual amount of liability, so we're not talking about the OPEB premium that you're paying for the actual insurance premiums. You're talking about chipping away at that $3 million future liability, which, by the way, as I mentioned, you don't have to pay in full, and you set it aside in a stabilization and it compounds interest over time. You can also invest it. I'm vastly forgetting the number because it's late, but I think annually they're wanting you to put aside, was it $150,000 a year for the annual liability?
Is that a
Would
certain
that be the
percentage?
service cost, Kristen?
Do you have it right in front of you?
Well, I'm looking at an Odyssey presentation and it's got,
That's the one.
yeah, service costs $168,996. Does that sound right, or?
It should be on a different, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I usually have that number secured in my head, and it's gone out because it's after 9
I might have the
o'clock.
wrong presentation. I had
I'll
two
look it up.
files.
Net OPEB liability. So your net OPEB liability comes down to about 300,000 or 3 million. Over time. Are you looking at the 75-35 split? You're looking at the older version of the plan.
The one I have
okay.
said, this
Yeah,
is what
hold
I
on,
have.
let me just pull up the new one.
She's
Yeah.
got.
This is the presentation from that night?
Yep, that's the one that
That's
has
the one,
the
okay.
amount on it. So
Mary,
the 44, thank you.
Sorry?
I just threw mine at you.
Oh, so it's 119,000.
Thank you. Yep, so the
And
first year, the premiums are
you. Probably have it in my bag.
$44,980, and your liability the first year is $196. So if you were actually to take 10% of free cash and put it toward the liability, you're pretty close there. And I can tell you most towns are funding less than 10% of their overall liability. So what would be great is if you do a couple years at 10%, you're going to have enough to be able to invest it, and then you can put in less going forward.
Because don't you have to have 250 though to
For
put
PRIT.
in for PRIT? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's one investment strategy. Also, Bartholomew is another company that does high yield OPEB stabilization accounts. We use Unibank for some of our other stabilizations, but those are about at 4.5% interest. You can usually get higher interest from Bartholomew when you're looking at something that's that long of a term of debt, because technically you could tap into general stabilization at any time with a vote of town meeting. With OPEB, the idea is that you're saving for that future liability. So you're investing over time, and eventually it's going to start yielding interest. You can take that interest and use it to pay off your annual premiums. So it will snowball eventually, but I think we need a good couple years of putting in that 10% in order to get where we need to be. Or the other option is, we know with the 250 we can do the PRIT investment. You can put in 250, but I figure let's go slow. We know that this is a concept that is challenging. and has been, you know, a point of concern for a lot of people over the years, and the fact that there was already a free cash plan that anticipated and included 10% going in annually for OPEB. My recommendation is that we stick with that, and what I would be asking the FinCom to do would be to take a vote to reinforce or, what's the word, resupport the existing free cash plan that was adopted by the FinCom in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was titled Use of Certified Free Cash Guidelines.
Did
Correct.
Did we
Guidelines.
actually put an additional 10% into stabilization last year?
No.
Was it last year before?
Capital, you mean?
No.
We did in general.
Into general.
But we didn't, no, because
Because
I
we
put it
can't.
on the warrant to put
And
into
then we took-
OPEB last year,
I couldn't-
and it was taken off.
Year before?
I'd have to go
I'd
back.
have to look.
I
wasn't
don't
here.
think that we've funded it.
No.
We haven't put
Well,
anything
we
in
haven't
OPEB.
funded OPEB because we can't until it's actually adopted and we
Active
actually have a
section.
policy.
But we
But I thought we put
noted
it
it
into stabilization.
in stabilization.
Oh,
So I
in
As-
think we
22 you
did
did?
20%.
Yes.
So there's already
Yes.
money in there
Just-
from,
I don't think it was last
No,
year
we
then.
can't.
Maybe it was the year before.
Maybe it was the year before.
Okay, I can make a note of
Or
that.
maybe it was last year.
But it was money in general stabilization that was noted to go once we had
Could be
OPEB.
used towards just because
An
we're
option,
trying
basically.
to stick with this, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Planning.
Or OPEB when it started.
Sort
Or
of park it
leave it
where
where it
you can
is
park it,
and-
and
Park it
then
where
when
you
you
go.
need it, you drive it out.
yeah.
I mean, if we did, I'd have to go back and look too, but if we did that, would it make sense? I know taking from stabilization, I mean, to make sure, you know, you brought out the almost, just under 75,000 to at least at your 250 mark
Yeah,
as, you know,
Yeah.
as soon as
Yeah.
possible.
but again, you'd have to have the policy, so if it's not taking effect this year, so it would be like a lapse, then we would have to put it into the regular stabilization and then pull it out.
So does that work that there'd be like two articles, right? The time you want to.
One to fund, one to accept the
That's- yeah,
provision of Mass
yeah,
General Law,
right.
and then one to fund. And the
Right.
stabilization account has already been set up at a previous town meeting, it just wasn't funded.
Yeah, I just remember when we
Right.
did it with the schools, it was a multi-year thing. It took
Yeah.
2 town meetings, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, one way or another, I think we'll see it on town meeting this year. There is definitely some talk, and this did not come from me, I'm not a resident, but of doing a citizen's petition if the select board does not choose to put it on the warrant and letting the voters decide. I have asked the IAC not to do that because I think the best way is to go through the select board and have that conversation, make sure we have all the questions answered, get the policies in order. But that is the right of residents of Berlin to do. So I think we'll see it one way or another. I
very
just
confusing to the general public.
Citizens petition is very adversarial because it basically goes around all of the boards and committees. So it's not my recommended way of doing things. I like the process where the path we're on now and working with everybody and trying to build consensus, and that's
Yes.
the path I would prefer to stay on.
Answer whatever questions that come up.
Exactly. Make sure everybody understands it and, yeah, asks all the questions they have. Throw out all the scenarios. Beat it to a pulp. I'm happy with that. I think that's what we should really be doing is kicking it around. And but at the same time, I don't want to kick the can down the road either because I think the IAC has put a lot of work into this, and I think that they are at the point where they feel like they've given as much information as they really can. And now, you know, if it's not specific questions or there's not more information that's really requested, it is time, I think, to take a vote.
Agreed.
All right, so you're looking at, what, just say right now, just a confirmation vote of this being the percentages or the dollar amounts for special articles being, you said 150,000 was the maximum, and then the 30, 10, 10, 10, 25.
Correct. I'm not looking for whether or not you know, like OPEB, want OPEB, think it should change, think what the percentage is. I'm literally looking for a confirmation on the free cash plan that the FinCom adopted in 2020 because there was only one person really on it back then.
And it's still relevant.
So,
Yeah, it is.
can
That's
can
pretty
you
simple.
put this up? Can you put this
I
up
sure
so people
can.
know what we're voting on? This
And I
is-
was going to put that
right.
one up, but I thought it was easier kind of broken down with numbers.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, the numbers is, I mean, that's pretty if it's applicable to today.
So-
I'm
so
kind
that-
of confused on why we need to do a reconfirmation, since the committee already voted for this.
Because when I brought it up a few weeks ago, I heard from you all that most of you weren't on the committee at the time, so you wanted to learn
I
more
brought
about
that,
it.
right, I brought
Yeah.
that up, because I was not, and obviously, you know,
It's
you
just-
do, and I didn't.
I mean, I think we would be voting if we were
On there as
changing
far as
it.
what free cash has.
I just don't know why we're voting to because it really shouldn't change just because the people on the committee changed.
I agree. I just wanted, in fairness to everybody who was new,
Yeah.
give you an opportunity to discuss it and have commentary on it. And, you know, if there were real significant concerns and there were changes you wanted to make, I wanted to have that discussion. I don't want to go to the select board Monday night and be like, yeah, FinCom, free cash policy. And then everyone's like, wait a minute, I wasn't on the committee when that policy was voted. So that's why I wanted to have the conversation.
So,
I'm
just to-
fine with it. So-
Yeah.
just to give, you asked the question, Scott, but to give you a little sense of how this all came up, because when Margaret Nardowitz arrived here, she got busy with some policies and some guidelines, so that we actually had we had a document you could go to and say this is how we've agreed to do something, and so this is one of the things she worked on with FinCom to put this together, and this tracks what is general practices in other parts of the state. I think it's not unfamiliar to you, right?
It's not unfamiliar to me at all.
Yeah,
This
so-
is what I'm used to. There are a little bit of variation. I've seen 25% for capital and more for special articles. Those are the two where I've seen some variation in. But the 10, 25 for sure. And then OPEB, some towns do a number as opposed to a percentage. However, when we talked to Parker Elmore from the actuarial firm, he said a percentage makes sense because of inflation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you say I'm going to put 20,000 a year in, well, what's 20,000 in 20 years?
Yeah.
Can I ask,
Nothing.
ask a really quick
Yeah.
question? Is this in the drive?
It can be. If it's not, I can make sure.
That'd be good. I like that. It's a good reference sheet.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I keep it right here with my notes.
I mean, I'm happy with it.
I like
just-
I like
I wanna be
I like
able to go
digital and
look at
paper.
it.
Yeah.
On both.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm going to put it. So when you go into the finance drive, there's a budget folder. I'm going to put it loose right in here. I think is probably the best.
Hanging like a Chad.
There you go. I've never heard that before, but I'll go with you.
You haven't heard.
No,
She's too young.
Too young, yeah.
All right, so, I
she
mean,
knows what we mean. No, maybe not.
like I said,
There
we,
you go.
we got the review of it, so, I mean, I have no need to have to take a vote on it myself, so if nobody wants to.
Trust you
If there's no
guys.
motion for it and
Anyway.
no second, we don't even have to have.
Thank you for bringing it up, though.
Oh.
To help us.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, because I've been referencing it at meetings, like
Well, it's great,
capital,
yeah.
select board, and I don't want to be like, the FinCom's free cash
Yep.
policy, and the FinCom members are like, what are you talking about?
And it might be at some point, you might want to tweak it a little bit too. So.
You could, right,
It's always good to
exactly.
revisit it.
This is a great chart. I'm glad.
No, it's great, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done
Better
anything
understanding.
to it because I really like it.
Yeah.
This
If
is
it ain't broke,
this
don't
is
fix it.
Margaret's work.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good to revisit
We're
it,
looking
because that's
at
where you just look at.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yep, actually,
All right, so I think we're all set, so just moving on to the next topic.
okay.
Is this the phone call?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll let you take it away, Scott.
Oh, you want me to take it away?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So we had a meeting today. It was a virtual call between Kristen, the town administrator, April for Boylston, one member of the select board for Boylston, one member of the finance committee, myself, and member of our select board, Chris Keefe, to discuss. Well, first of all, to get an understanding of what they know about going out with schools, and also what our understanding is. So they haven't, they are requesting, I know, the schools to come in February 12th. Of course, they were on our agenda to come in next Wednesday, February 7th. We'll see if they actually do meet with them or not. because they were.
They'll be sending the
said
invite
they
out
would
in the
not-
next couple
yes,
days, they said.
yes. So there's, no, obviously they don't have much information on what's going on. They are hearing, the numbers about their, their getting, specifically Boylston Elementary School, which would be all on their plate for costs of significant costs over there. They're also trying to work to try and get other estimates and stuff like that going. There was some information we learned during the process. So I guess there's at Tohoto, they mentioned about, I guess, drainage issues at the fields, and talk about other type of work done there. But apparently there's some
Private companies that was
yes,
willing
that's
to do
interesting
it?
to
Or talk about it.
give us some assessment on it. And the guy in the feeling that the school's resisting taking advantage of that situation. And but they are still, pushing ahead on their side with that. They're also pushing, what's the MSBA, some type of grant funding?
So the Massachusetts School Building Authority will provide funding for both new schools as well as renovating existing schools. So the school has been supposedly pursuing those grants for the roof replacements and at least something else at BES, but they have expressed, the school has said they don't think they'll get them, which I think they have a better shot than they think they do.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of these things are percentage based. They're not a you're getting everything or nothing type of situation.
Right.
But any type of offset obviously is beneficial. So they're going to do their own analysis of, because apparently I guess the school buildings fall under, I don't know if that's for both towns like that, jurisdiction of the towns. So they are going to be doing their own analysis of what the issues are that they're talking about. Specifically, this was at Tohoto. So, so that's kind of where we're at. I mean, part of it was expressing some disappointment of the conversations that occurred at the end of last year, where the school committee seemed to be, we thought we reached out to each other about starting the process early this year and having the communications and what's going on. And we seem to think that's what we started with, because there was the early meeting.
October
I forget
26th,
I think it was October, right? Cliff attended.
Yes.
For us, of course, Kristen also, and on the Boylston side. But since then, I mean, things have just. I mean, we are requesting for more information, right? For them meeting with us on the budgets, and suddenly the schools have gone essentially silent on this. I mean, they are having their own meetings, but they are spreading out the dates and times that are turning this into, we have to make decisions. And for them to, continue to push this out. I mean, also there was, some concern. I mean, we didn't really have the issue in Berlin last year at town meeting, but apparently at Boylston they did a last minute changing of the numbers at town meeting, which also, has ruffled some feathers in the process. So, right now things aren't working well. Between communications with the school committee, either from the side of Boylston or Berlin. And so that's my summary of it. If there's anything, Kristen, that you want to add?
I mean, I'm going to that coffee thing. That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
With my wife. And I'm just reviewing all the emails and stuff. And
I think what's hard, and you've all seen the email that we got back from the schools.
Yeah.
And, it's basically that they're doing a new budgeting process this year, and the idea is to not release any numbers until they're firm. And I also received information that part of that is because of what happened in Boylston last year, where there was the switcheroo on town meeting floor, and that ruffled feathers. So they don't want to release firm numbers, and I said, but we can't function with no numbers. We have to have estimates.
When you say switcheroo,
Yeah,
the town changed the numbers or the school changed the numbers?
I don't
Or they
know
both
the
changed
whole
the-
story.
There was a couple of things that I don't have the exact details on.
Just a fundamental, that Massachusetts regulations for regional school districts requires the school district to give the towns in the district the town assessment, what the budget's going to be, is it 45 days ahead of town
Yeah, I
meeting?
think, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
And it's supposed to be in a certified letter, which was not done last year.
And they were past the
And
deadline.
on the morning of the two towns who were in the district, our respective town meetings, same date, same place, neither town had a firm number on what the school budget would be from the school committee, the school district. So we had a really difficult year last year. And the problem is, I think the school committee this year understands that 45-day thing. If you look at the schedule that was sent over by email to us. But we as a town need to act before that
date, yeah.
point, right?
Correct, which is March 22nd, by the way.
It is
if you're
March
wondering, for
22nd, I
this
think.
year.
That's the
did the
town, that's the
calculation.
town meeting?
No, that is
No.
the
Deadline,
deadline
March
for the
22nd?
school to
That's
submit their
45
budget.
days.
That's the school deadline to get a certified letter out, which
With their
means
budget.
any vote or conversation it's got to happen around what those numbers are, has to happen ahead of that
That's what
date.
goes on the warrant.
Yes, right.
And we typically try to be in agreement before that, so what they submit to us is the same as what we're recommending. And basically, we feel that we're getting kind of stonewalled, and what they're saying to us is, well, we're going to have a big budget meeting on February 27th, and maybe we can get together after that. And it's like, I have to have all of my recommendations finalized to you all but within the first 2 weeks of February, so that you can start, the selectmen can start taking votes, the FinCom can start taking votes. I cannot wait to build a budget. I haven't even looked at supplemental funding
And to
yet.
reiterate, it's usually the select board that votes and then the FinCom votes, so.
Correct. And they did take a few votes on Monday, which was
Yeah.
great with some of the little budgets, because I want to keep it moving.
So that means that our
But-
FinCom budget is after our
So
I'm forgetting the word, but our schedule,
Mm-hmm.
our dates are after the select board's actions.
Correct. So I have to have everything done so the select board can vote on it, then you vote on it, then we prepare the warrant. And so we can't wait till March 22nd to get a number. That's just not possible.
So just a point of order here, is there any problem with the select board and FinCom in Berlin taking a vote on information we have right now, and then taking a second vote should we get something from the school that would indicate that we ought to take a second vote? Is there any problem with doing it over with a do-over? Because the point is, the first vote would be to put a placeholder in our budget, since the schools are roughly half the budget. Put that placeholder in, and you can build the rest of it.
Thank you, because I
Yeah.
need some guidance.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a recommendation, but I
not
would
talking.
like to hear what you think.
My recommendation is, it's what I said last week, is, and I'll actually do the numbers, somebody can check them, is take what we voted on at town meeting for the schools and back out the free cash component of it.
Yep.
And that is our budget. Not 2.5 over it, that budget. Because the question, I hear taxpayers say this, it doesn't have to go up, my taxes don't have to go up 2.5, do they?
They don't, but costs go up. That there are fixed non-discretionary costs that go up.
Kristen,
That's
we-
my only
Kristen,
concern.
we have no visibility into revenues at the school, no real visibility. The whole.
Well, you also have no knowledge of what the contractual increases are for staff.
Correct.
And the majority of the school
Unions.
budget is salary.
Yes.
And you have no idea, I have no idea either. I mean, we have no idea what those contracted increases are.
Right.
And they're not just percentages the way these are. There are lanes, percentages, so it's not like...
That's what we need to know.
Right.
So
And
some
special
people
ed.
are getting 4% increases in their salary,
But-
and others are getting 2, and others are getting 3, and it's because of the way the contracts are set up. So we have no idea.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest things, always you get at a minimum, is the level services budget. So to keep
level
what you
service
have
budget.
presently, what's the additional cost just to keep what you have present?
But
And-
my request for that level services was turned down.
Well, that's
Mine
the
as well.
point.
No, it
That's-
was ignored.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
that's-
it's turned
I was
down.
flatly
That, I
turned
mean,
down.
that's the point, and that's the,
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
the issue here of, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think we all agree with that. It's ridiculous. I mean, with Boylston, they find it ridiculous. And so Yeah, we do need to figure out what's a number, I mean, that we can start putting into the budget. And obviously, one of the complicating things is the free cash component that was handled last year, which is why we even need more information going forward because of that, to try and, alleviate the big tax hike, but yet, address an immediate need. And now we don't even know how much of that immediate need is still there.
Kristen, I was going to say, if you could just give us what the number was last year that Mary was mentioning?
That free cash is not in the budget because that was a motion that was made after the budget was set. So if you look at the actual budget numbers from last year, hold on, let me unfreeze 24. Oh, don't unfreeze everything. There we go. Sorry, I can't stand it when there's all these columns and you can't see what you're looking at. Okay, so FY24 in the first column. Let me get down to the schools. Avert your eyes if you don't want to get dizzy. Okay, so the number last year was this 3924434. Free cash never goes into the budget. So that is your base number without that free cash of 382.
That's Berlin Memorial, right?
That's for Berlin Memorial. Yep. And then Tohoto is 3,206,381.
And then you're ready. And then your next column is already the 2.5 that we did indicate in the letter we sent them.
We did indicate 2.5, and my only concern, and Mary, I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. We know, though, that there are going to be increases. I know we don't know what they are, but they're likely to be perhaps even more than 2.5.
So Kristen, we're reasonable people. So I'm talking about an estimated starting budget.
My concern is if
Do I need to be more clear about what I just said?
No, but my concern is if I start at 3.9 instead of going into the 4 number, and then I build out the rest of my budget and I give everybody their supplemental funding requests, and then we have to scale things back. I don't want to do that.
Understand.
I don't want to get people's hopes up.
Right. So we just hit everybody with over 4% on their real estate taxes, right?
Yep.
So
it's a huge
the question stands, and I'm speaking for some taxpayers I've spoken, to.
Sure.
Why do we have to take it to? Thank you. Why do we have to take it 2.5% over last year? We don't. And my suggestion is to start right there with with the idea that you can take it up.
But I can't build out the rest of my budget. That's the problem. Do you know what I mean? I would have to take something away then at that point.
Right. Well, I guess the next my question would be, I mean, we're talking about
We want to do a
2.5%. If we could figure out the general idea what we'll have Assabet in
I have
next week.
Assabets. I got Assabets, by the way, in December, just in case anybody was wondering.
They've always been ahead of the
An
original
estimate,
scope.
a conservative
Always.
estimate.
Yes.
And I think I sent everybody the little item clipping that on the
I read that, the article.
Yeah, I get the item. I had read that.
But you would think they would be able to come up with a
I mean,
level
those were big
funded
numbers, but
with all the.
But they're slightly larger schools, too.
Well, yes, they can.
What do
I
you
mean,
call that? Yeah, what do you?
Well, the
Level
percentages
services.
were
Yes.
for
So
Bolton
level services, and they
7+%,
should be able to give us that,
Lancaster 8+%,
and then-
and Stowe 6+%.
Do you think it's just consultant? I mean, it's like they lawyered up.
No.
I would, if a
No,
placeholder
I-
helps
it's
the
pretty-
budget.
No, I know what you're
Well,
saying,
Shane,
but I think it's a misinterpretation.
So,
misinterpretation. I don't.
If you're
think
looking for a
that's-
It could be
placeholder
because
so
they
that
need
you have a
guidance
reasonable
on how to
budget,
Actually.
I think your 2.5% increase is reasonable. I think that gives us a placeholder number. They're never going to come in for less than that. Never.
But I think it's also us being, I mean, my take on it is us being consistent with what we've been telling the
Yes.
schools.
Right, 'cause we did
we're like
send that letter.
we basically, every year for the past few years have been saying this is what we're working with.
Yep.
And if you can't work with this, let us know early on.
What we said is under, no more than 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
This is my point.
Yeah.
This is a negotiation.
the reason, I mean, the question I've got to is what is, for now we have Assabet's number, but can we come up with, I don't know if we can do it tonight, but can we look to get what the if it was 2.5% on their side, what would the overall levy increase we'd be talking about? I mean, is the rest of the town only at 1.75? Or are they also at 2% or 2.5%? Or are we at 2.6%? I mean, where?
And that's what I haven't quite been able to figure out yet because there's such a huge component of the budget. So every department went up 2% cost of living on salary, okay? So we know there's the 2% on the personnel side,
Yeah,
right?
whatever the salary percentage is.
Correct. And I asked everyone to level fund or level service fund expenses, meaning anything that goes up has to be basically non-discretionary or something that's a critical item, or they put it in a supplemental funding request. So, for example, if you look at, we did, what did we do? The assessor's budget, whichever one we did earlier that had a supplemental.
COA.
Yes, thank you.
But we should have, without the supplemental, if you just looked at because I'm assuming the FY request is not with the supplemental, right? FY
No.
request, the supplemental is on top of it.
Supplemental's in its
So
own
if you looked at
column.
if you did we did the 2.5% number in there for the schools, and if you went down to the bottom and figure out, you'll see the total dollar amount,
Yep.
and figure out what that percentage increase is total-wise.
So it's a
I know
little
it's-
tough because they're mixed, but I don't want to look at this because I would call this your sort of fixed non-discretionary costs in this bottom column that are going up 12%. Those
Well,
are your
yeah.
insurances and everything. So let's not look at that. I see what you're saying.
Well, the total,
So let's
the
go up
total
here.
number at the very bottom.
The total, where are we at?
Right
Total budget,
there,
negative 0.1.
197. Now,
Interesting.
yeah, there's things that'll have to be clarified
Yeah.
on some of this, and also
Because
make sure that
we did go down in a couple of places, like our debt went down a little bit, as it does annually. But now if you look at, look at culture and recreation. That entire department only went up 1.4% in their requests, overall requests.
Can you go down actually go down to the school, the assessments?
Yep.
So right now, the Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment.
That's
right,
what's messing
we
it
got
up
a
because
zero
we don't
right
have
there.
capital in
Right,
there.
and that's another big problem. They can't even
Correct.
provide us capital.
And that's why,
And
you
that's
should actually be in
that's
blue.
right, and
These are my blue
and we
ones.
know it's not going to be a
Need
zero
more
number.
info.
Scott,
No, it won't be a zero number.
Did capital planning get anything?
No.
Capital
Thank you.
plan didn't get anything, and I remember must have been last fall when we were first talking about the capital needs for the Berlin Memorial School. The idea was to do a debt exclusion.
If it was going to need to be
But-
a roof, redoing the fields at Tohoto and adding air conditioning, you were looking at somewhere around 1.5 million. And this was all off the cuff. They were throwing out round numbers of 800,000, 400,000, and 600,000 for the field. So I said maybe ours is half, so you get to about 1.5 million. So I did run some debt exclusion numbers at that time, but I didn't share them because I was waiting until we got more information.
But then you also said that in order to do the debt exclusion in time for the town meeting, we have other steps we have to do.
Correct.
And then we have to have a second vote on it?
So
gonna say,
the
debt
debt
doesn't
exclusion
have to go to
requires a
board.
vote at the town election as well as town meeting. So
Okay.
that would now hit Eloise's deadlines on the ballots. So this is something that when it came up October 26th, I immediately went to our financial advisors and I said, give me some debt schedule options for 10, 20, and 30-year borrowings for $1.5 million. And I got a schedule, anticipating that I was going to get the firm numbers, plug them in, and then be able to provide you with the data. I've gotten nothing. So I haven't even released that information because it's not accurate.
Right. This is, just goes to show that, the school committee is working on their own agenda and their own process. And like I say, as much as they talked about including us on this, obviously it was all words and no actions on the school committee part. So, we need to just start filling in numbers and moving forward. And I'm not sure how we even handle the capital assessment. That's
Well, that
No,
does
that's based
balance
off
out.
need?
It looks bad
yes,
here.
this is like the
Like the
roof and this type of stuff. This is basic stuff that our capital planning should have had.
it looks bad on expenditures because it messes up your percentages here, but because it's capital, it's free cash. So you actually see it going out of the budget on the expenditure, but you would normally see it coming into the budget here on revenue, which I don't have it in. So it's actually not messing up the budget, because right now I have it 0 on the revenue and 0 on the expenditure.
But the
zeroed
problem is
out
we didn't
either
have
way.
enough money in
Right.
free
But
cash.
it's messing up the percentages from last year to this year.
But we
But at
also
least
didn't have
it's
enough money
zero.
in free cash
But
to pay
still
for
paying.
all of
We
that.
don't.
So that's
Absolutely
why
not.
the debt exclusion was so important.
Correct.
Because that was going to be the way to fund it.
Right.
But what
And-
you've been saying is that because you haven't gotten the information that you need,
Yeah.
you haven't been able to move forward on proposing that.
Correct. And also, I needed firm numbers, and I need things in writing. I also need to know what's going on with MSBA, because the MSBA repair program will pay up to a certain percentage, and I believe Berlin's percentage is somewhere around 48 or 47%. It changes from year to year. It's based on the wealth of the town, basically, and population numbers and all of that. So I need to know where we're at in the MSBA process, when awards are going to be made, because I'm not going to set aside $800,000 that frankly I don't have through a debt exclusion and then have them come back and say, oh, well, the state's going to pick up 4. There's just, this is playing with taxpayer dollars. I don't like it, and I won't do it.
You want me to ask this stuff tomorrow?
Sure, whatever you'd like.
Cool.
So what is this tomorrow? You said
My wife, it's right here.
Superintendent's coffee.
Yeah, coffee. She's gonna make stuff, I guess.
Can we see what the
Is that here in
schedule is?
Berlin or is it Boylston?
Not here. It says Superintendent Carroll or whatever will be holding a coffee, BMS library. Please stop to
Oh,
hear
the school
what's
library, yeah.
about new in the district. Ask questions if you have them, which we do, or share whatever else is on your mind.
What time is it?
This past year.
I'm comfortable being uncomfortable.
What time is it?
9 o'clock.
I actually had to
In the morning?
Yep.
Because DOR.
I'll be there. I told my wife I'd go for the music department. She was trying to help out with that.
To see what that is,
Okay.
because it should be set at this point. So,
I think that
I just continue to be embarrassed.
well, the discussion we had with Boylston today was great. They are later. They start their budget process a little later than we do. So they haven't requested
So it's not just us.
information from the schools yet. They were sending, the chair who was on from FinCom from Boylston today said they're going to be sending out their request this week to have them come on the 12th. I said, please let me know how that goes. I'm certainly willing to drive out to Boylston on the 12th and sit and listen to a meeting. But, you know, I just let them know we were declined for the 7th, and that the information we were told was not going to be forthcoming until after February 27th. So I think there needs to be, we've basically, I guess the point is, we've picked up where we thought the schools were going, which was this work group. Well, we've basically made our own. The 2 town administrators, the 2 FinCom chairs, and the 2 select board chairs. And we're keeping each other informed, and I think we're going to put a
You're doing your due
unified
diligence.
message forward, because, you know, I think there's also a little bit of pitting the towns against each other that's going on, and it's unfortunate to see.
So thank you to both of you for doing that, getting that conversation, keeping it running, because I think,
It's really
I think
important.
it's really
Kristen
important.
has done most of the
thank you.
organization work.
I give April
Yeah.
the credit too in Boylston. She's been great. And we are meeting again in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
we've already set the date for the next meeting.
Now, their town meeting's the same day as ours again?
Theirs is always business.
Yeah. Always,
The
okay.
first Monday of May.
They start a half
this-
an hour before us, though,
And
I
this
think.
year, it'll be late, right? Because it'll be May 7th. Last
It's
year was
May
May
6th.
1st or May 6th. Oh,
Yeah,
because it's
this
leap
year's
year.
May 6th,
Because
yeah.
we have extra February day.
So,
They even have an extra day in this thing this year to get this thing going, and they
They do.
still aren't even taking advantage of that.
For your session tomorrow, would this be helpful? This is a fact sheet I did last April. It shows 5 years' history of school funding for Berlin. It
Yeah,
shows
send
what
it to
we
me.
did.
Or,
I'll send
yeah.
that over to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
does that have an average budget?
You know, I may actually have that on paper, because I think you gave it to us.
yeah,
to me.
it was the green sheet. I'm sorry, this is just a fact sheet that I did ahead of.
Yeah, but does
Right.
that say what it is that
So
their
ask
budget
about the
goes up every
MSBA,
year?
the repair thing.
Is
And-
it like
and what else?
For the
Five.
roof. So the MSBA is for the roof
I know there was
at
one that was
Berlin
like
Memorial.
21,
Yep.
but
Is
I didn't know if you
picture, this is it, right?
Any
That's
capital
it.
item.
Would you mind showing
Capital
that?
item?
is that something that we could use as a placeholder?
I'm sorry.
Is what I
You
was
got
thinking.
it.
Nope, you're okay.
Well, I just looked at, I just went and did a little research and pulled up numbers
to see trend. And then the box on the right is
Yeah, you send that
where
to me.
we landed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll.
Because I'm just wondering, do we use this for your own going forward, as far as if the average, if you look at it and it's, say, 4%?
Well, right. So we had 1 year we were -3. We had 1 year we were -1.9.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, I
But-
believe that special ed is our biggest,
That's what it sounds like.
sounds like, which is understandable, but they can't show that.
Yeah.
But it's,
Because special ed is this pendulum that
and it
swings.
is, and we kind of know that, but in
Yeah,
the
anywhere.
past, it's been shared in a way where it was understood,
Yes.
I think, is the only way I can.
And there was
And we're
always
not getting
planning
that.
in the budget, assuming that there would be additional costs to special ed
Right.
that would catch us by surprise in September.
And,
You know, because you just knew that's the way it was going
Right.
to be.
right.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that's something.
Bring my
even if
coffee and
it's
a
just
donut
workable.
tomorrow.
Not wanted, but workable.
So I will say in terms of requests, and this doesn't necessarily mean what the budget will be, but the requests from general government were a 5% increase. And this includes that 2% on personnel and only increasing fixed non-discretionary costs. So you figure that's another 3%. And to see costs going up 3% year over year is not unusual. That does not
It's
surprise
ridiculous.
me. It's probably more than that because it depends on what percentage of the budget is personnel versus expenses. When you look at public safety, their budget requests are up 5.1% over last year. And again, I stress these are the requests, not my recommendation or what the select board has voted on or you will vote on. What is this?
Public Works.
Public Works is a 2.1% overall. Human Services is going to be big because we're adding in that the request included that extra salary portion for Victoria, so that was at 33.
But
Culture and
a
Rec's at
large percent
1.4.
of a small budget
Is
is
not
a
the
whole
same.
different
Absolutely.
ballgame.
Percentage, yeah.
I just wanted to show you because you had asked about percentages. So.
Yeah, well, that's why, in the end, I mean, just really want to see what you
Yeah.
can see what the total numbers would be.
We're
on the
running about 12% on
percentage
benefits and
side.
insurance.
So, do we know where we're still, things not quite coming out right, where we're getting a -0.1 still?
The minus 5.5, that's because I don't have the
No.
capital in. Where am I getting the
Okay.
minus
Oh,
0.1?
the total, just going down the line, 197 or whatever it is. Keep going down. Yeah, 197.
Yes, because I have a minus 5.5 currently in in the intergovernmental, which is the largest
Okay.
portion of the
All
budget.
right, that's a percentage change to -400.
And it's giving me the error because it wants me to do the same formula as this one next to it, not the one above it. That's why I keep getting the error
And
message.
do you know what the intergovernmental the issue is on that?
Yeah, it's the loan repayment.
That's the largest one, you
Yeah,
said?
see, because it's like 400,000 that you're gonna be at least putting in there to repay Tohoto debt,
Okay, so 442.
right?
Oh, yes,
Oh, did you level
Tohoto
it?
capital assessment.
I leveled it from last
Oh,
year.
okay.
Capital assessment.
Because I assumed if anything,
Oh.
it's going to go down
Yeah.
slightly, so I leveled it from last year. But you're right. I don't have that number, so that should actually be in blue too. This was just me playing around, plugging in numbers right now. I know in my head that those numbers are going to change when we get final ones. But also, the ASABIT has a new one, just FYI. This is a capital improvement fund they want to start. It's basically their own capital stabilization fund. And our assessment for this is a whopping $9,104. I think it's a smart move. I don't think it's a huge amount of money. And if you look, our assessment actually,
Well, for us it isn't, but some other towns.
it is huge for other towns. Our enrollment.
It'll be a big number.
I was actually trying to pull the enrollment. I thought it was up too, but the number was down. So unless she messed up on the initial
enrollment
number.
was down and their number went up?
Other way around.
Other way around.
Okay.
Hold on, I just want to pull up. Ernie had just sent me a spreadsheet, an updated number the other day. Here we go. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I got from ASABIT on, I think, the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna make it bigger so you can actually like read it. Okay, so our assessment, if you add up the 671.03, oh sorry, 671.073.
After
This is-
9.
I get
This is
dyslexic with
happening.
numbers. 3078. And the long-term debt service goes in its own line item. So the way we do this is we have the assessment, and then we have we're calling it the capital. They call it long-term debt. We call it capital assessment, but it's debt for the capital.
Yeah, it's debt repayment.
Yeah, I mean, we can change that to debt repayment. We probably should actually, right?
Makes
to make
it sounds, yeah, makes it
It's
easy.
just like the Tohoto debt repayment.
That's what I call it. You call it this. but
Oh,
that's-
that was just, I inherited that. So.
I think debt repayment's a good
Yeah.
descriptor.
Yes,
All right.
makes more sense.
So then, sorry, let me go back to that one. Where did I do with it? There we go.
So is that like they built a new school? Is that what we?
Well, in their case, they renovated.
Well, they did a lot of
Renovated it?
renovation,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. So, and here's our numbers. So
We had
35
Well, so we have 35 people
plus
going
2
in?
LPN cosmetology students for a total of 37
Oh,
on
good.
enrollment numbers for
I see
FY 25.
So
which
that's
is
considered to be a
small-
3.6% increase in enrollment? Is that what that
So
number
it's
means?
essentially almost level.
No, that's not the percentage increase, that's the percentage of we have 3.6% of the students.
Ah,
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank
Yes.
you.
thank you.
So they have
But-
a total of 1,000 students to go there? Just over?
Yeah, you see, obviously, it's in Marlboro, and you see where most of the
Okay, so, oh
students
wow,
are.
wow, 1,000, that's
Yeah.
a good sized school.
If you look at, and he explained it really well actually in this email too. And sorry, I don't want to keep you guys here all that much longer. I think this is where he was talking
Go
about
look at it, it's off
stabilization.
85 as you head into Hudson.
It's sprawling. That's all
Mhm.
tech schools are.
Yeah,
Somebody's saying, where are you?
it's my wife, yeah.
She's like, it's almost 10. Yeah, right? She's like, what are these people doing to you?
What was your limit?
So
9. I thought it was 9.
I was thinking
60
it was.
minutes.
Well, with the school, I want to make sure that I
Yeah.
will have the right things to
My email
discuss.
is on the way.
Okay,
Or it
good.
should be there by now, with that Excel file that.
And we have,
Appreciate it.
and we have videos, so she'll know where you actually have been.
Yep. Oh, she's good.
It's all on tape.
So you have to go right home after.
This is the problem I have searching my emails sometimes. I can't find what I'm looking for. There we go.
I mean, even with this, I mean, it's just a matter of. I
It's
think,
not a significant increase, I guess.
figuring
Here
out
we
what
go.
our numbers are. So the only thing we have on the agenda next week is Assabet, right?
Correct.
So it's just
So-
Assabet.
Yeah, they'll explain.
So we could
But I was
probably
trying
just
to-
leave it, we'll get the details of Assabet tomorrow, next week, and then we will use the rest of that thing to discuss how we're handling the schools. Shane can report back to us on anything from
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
or anybody else that can attend. I will not be able to.
I'll be there.
9 a.m.
Yep.
At 9 a.m. on Thursday.
No,
Okay.
I can't do it tomorrow either.
Right, anything else?
I'm not invited either. I think it's a parent thing that she's doing.
No,
So-
no, it's a public thing.
Is it?
Yeah, it's open to the, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
So if
you
you're
wanna
done,
adjourn?
yeah.
I'm not.